Hey up, Magoobas. How is everyone today on this fine, lovely summer's day? Right, I have a new background. People tell me if it's good enough. Hey, is that nice? What do you think? Nice little bit of background behind me. There's been a certain guy causing terror in our server members' DMs. Okay. Yeah, what happened to the underscore OW, by the way? What happened there? I swear you were underscore OW at some point. You rebranded? Do you still hate Bastion? You hate Bastion? Is that a thing? Why has Flute rebranded himself to Balls? Oh god, the video had an end. Oh sorry, the video had an end. I've got to press the loop button. Loop. Good, we're back to normal. Why is he Balls now? I've been enlightened. Okay, well that's nice. That's nice, right? Like we can all agree, no matter what's happening in the background, it's nice that he's branded himself to Balls. A little bit of music on in the background. Get ourselves off the main menu. Reading DMs on stream? Yeah, just one DM. That was reading DMs on Steam. Stream. What's hard? W background? Thank you. I could have done much better. There's no bars in Atlas. I had a full look around Atlas, like a full glide through. Not a single fucking bar. There's one piano bar, but it's got no bar in the piano bar. I don't know where they're meant to be serving drinks from, apparently from Narnia. But yeah. That would be haram? Oh yeah, to be fair. But they do need drinks, right? I think you still serve drinks in an establishment with a piano. Because they've got the piano, right? They've got the piano bar in the spawn that's that way from the camera. That spawn. That spawn's got a piano bar. I assume they both do. I didn't check the other one. But yeah. So we're going to be talking to Abby today. So we have a list of topics that we're going to be gliding through. They're not going to be too formal. We're not going to be debating. We're going to be talking like regular humans. Even in Dubai, it's a lot more common than you think. What? The frog water. I assume he's not saying the frog water's available in the hotels. Drinks? Yeah, well, but if you like frog water, sure. Okay, let's give you a call. Right, my Discord may be hilariously off-kilter in terms of volume. It's a cultural clash. We don't know about that frog water, right? Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hello. Right, let me balance you so you're not blowing out everyone's eardrums. Give me a Peter Piper picked a peckle pickle pepper, a peckle pickle pepper, Peter Piper picked. Shit, I can't even say it myself. Say something.
See, this is the area where I would use Genji's deflect and just make you say that for me, but not possible through a Discord cord at the moment.
Volume up, volume down,
Guys,
volume
I'm so
middle.
Sorry. Guys, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. That's my job in my videos, not over here. Over here, you guys will see a very different Abby.
A little bit up. Continue chatting absolute crap, Abby, for a moment so they can tell the volume.
Okay. Well,
I know it's
we
a
have
bit
a
of
lot
an
to talk
answer.
about today.
Up
So,
more.
no,
He's
it's fine,
louder
so-
than me.
so-
I can see on my meter. Are you sure?
I don't even know. Do I just keep blabbering?
It seems
That's
like
kind
it.
of my thing.
Until they decide. Until they stop
Alright
saying
guys, let's talk about that. We are going to debate why Rivals is better than Advocate.
the best game in the world, TM.
Best
Oh
game
man,
in-
I just love the Marvel
Rivals
IP.
apologist right here. I am very much no, don't guys. We'll be fair. You guys know me. I am very fair when I approach anything. It's going to be a fun conversation. I've not had the chance to really discuss rivals with anyone, and I think Realth is probably the perfect person to kind of come down as someone who's been in Overwatch's sphere as well as the rival sphere a little bit. And there's going to be a lot of cool things where we have a lot planned.
Yeah, so basically you responded to me as part of my original original video on Rivals, right? That was the response.
Yes.
And we wanted to talk about quite a few things.
I watched that entire thing 2 times. It's a really fun watch.
Thank you. I tried my best. Unfortunately, it didn't do that well. I stayed on 20k-ish. The actual individual segments got over 20k. I think it was a bit mixed in terms of the messaging from the start, and that's probably why I didn't do too well. Abby does sound very muted, like depth is missing. Abby, can you apply some more depth?
Maybe
wrong mic or something? I doubt it.
Hold on. Is it better now? This is this
about the same.
I think this is as good as it gets, guys. I really hate to say it.
No,
I don't have this issue with other. Yeah, okay. I'm being trolled now. That's not fair.
Abby plays Overwatch, so that can't be fixed. Excellent. He sounds dead inside.
Come on, guys. Guys, I always sound dead on the inside. I can't help it. And sometimes if I raise my voice, people think I'm being mean. It gets so tiring because I can't raise my voice.
See the thing.
People think I'm shouting at them. It's so sad.
See, he sounds like he's a lot more clear normally because he's normally yelling at the microphone during a video, so it sounds a lot more clear because he's.
Oh, here we go, man.
Classic Genji player moment.
Indeed. Oh, we're gonna talk about him. I kind of want to bring him up a lot today.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. I love talking about
Genji.
Genji.
Get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, sure.
No, we'll get to it.
So, in terms of
do you
starting,
mind if I? Yeah, sure.
No, go ahead. You say, do mind if I? Do you want to start us off?
I just want a quick preface to everybody that's watching and doesn't know me.
Of course.
My name's Abby. It's clearly a nickname. And obviously English is not my first language. I do genuinely my level best to get my points out there and speak on something. There's going to be points where I will genuinely sound like a blithering idiot, and that may happen a lot more frequently than anyone would like, but it makes for entertaining content, so feel free to enjoy me making myself look stupid over video game pixels.
Happens to the best of
alongside us. Alongside that, what I cherish a lot when it comes to video games and what I try to look for in them is I have this weird obsession with dev philosophy and kind of holding them to their words and making sure they follow through with something and maybe not, kind of go around it with some cases, with other cases not. This is kind of a problem we have in Overwatch, and also it's there in Rivals. So we will discuss all of that, in my opinion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Let me just cut out the frame so people can see that I'm on a Discord call. It does really help. There you go. There we go.
Hey, that's perfect.
A little bit of adjustment, and there we're good. I think that's a couple of pixels off. I need to enlarge that so I can see.
One more thing, Realth, in the off chance that Discord my voice acts up, just let me know and I'll rejoin. It's a little Dubai issue that we have.
Yeah, you said you're having internet problems. No problem.
Yeah, so just that usually fixes Discord for me. So just give me a heads up if that happens.
Okay, yeah, no worries at all. Anyway, yeah, welcome. Thank you for talking to me, first off. I appreciate you spending all that time with me to watch the video twice. I mean, that's a crazy amount of time. Just to even think of somebody watching the video twice is kind of crazy to me. Right, so I guess we start on Rivals, because that was kind of like the start of our bullet pointing of topics together that we actually thought were interesting to talk about. So what is your current place with Rivals, right? Are you playing it? Have you played it? Where are you?
So Marvel Rivals, first of all, I'm a huge Marvel fanboy, so it's right up my alley. It's everything I could have asked for. However, I can't deny that obviously there is a certain there's certain issues within the game, but I also feel like going into that game, everybody needs to slightly temper expectations because the balance team and dev team have made it very clear what this game is gonna be. However, I do think that even then there is a area where you can tone these things down or bring them a lot more in line with one another to be a lot more fair. So how much I play Rivals and Overwatch, I would say it's about equal to one another, maybe 60-40, a little bit more Rivals than Overwatch at the moment, but it is pretty fair. Yeah. I have been playing and streaming a handful here and there, not really this patch for Rivals since Stadium kind of got me hooked. So that's my stance with where I am with Rivals, and I really wanted to discuss with Realth because I wrote this beautifully long comment that decided it's going to delete itself, and that's what led to this glorious moment, where we wanted to talk about the GOAT's Rivals playstyle. And mitigation stacking. I feel like that's something that was very interesting. Nobody's been talking about that just yet, and I guess I could start off like. In my opinion, so the first thing that I wanted to bring up was I believe Marvel Rivals has tools to deal with their little mitigation stacking and comms that are very like stick together and will never die, like the GOATs style that we have now gotten accustomed to
I
in hero
think
shooters in general.
we should kind of like define how Rivals is playing right now to start with. From my
Yeah, of course.
perspective, and I haven't played it for a little while, Rivals is mostly playing
Okay.
as a we stand at medium range from each other. Nobody really walks forward or backwards, apart from when you have a massive resource disparity between the teams. We farm, we press ultimates, then things start happening for the most part. Aside from that, there's kidnapping that happens of hooks. There's kidnapping that happens obviously Wolverine and walls from Groot and stuff like that. And that's kind of like assassinate stuff you can play. But from what I've seen, the actual dive play styles in that game at this point have been mostly disincentivized from individual players or from team players.
By any chance, were you around for early season 2 meta for Marvel Rivals? Because we did have a dive meta, and it was horrible. And I kind of wanted to address that actually.
Sure.
So Marvel Rivals, I'm sure anybody that's been through the PTSD of Captain America and Hulk fisting you across like the corner has not been the most pleasant dive experience we could have asked for. And that's because I wanted to justify that I think dive is a very, very tough comp to perhaps even make meta. I guess that's what the devs learned really quickly, simply because unfortunately, as far as the tanks and particularly 1 DPS, which I'll get to, go, they've incentivized the idea that, well, these dive tanks should have a lot more sustain on them. I think the worst offender of this was Captain America. And he was a huge defining force in Season 2, alongside Hulk, who paired with him really, really well.
Yeah, he's essentially a gnat, isn't he?
Yeah.
He doesn't really do much of anything while he's in. He doesn't really have that strong a pressure, but he can always win a 1v1 if you're both alone, right?
Exactly. And one of the best things about Cap that perhaps maybe it is a little bit underappreciated about him with his annoying cockroach playstyle is he's able to force out resources, which then leads to a very aggressive dive. Now, we were calling this type of dive comp a very sustained focused dive, which was very much centered around Iron Fist, because he also followed this logic of, well, if you try to punish me, I'll just live more. You know, and then the rest is like from there with the combined effort of Hulk, and then Namor was kind of shoehorned into the comp just because he could peel for the supports really well, and the turret helped applied any extra pressure that you would expect it to apply.
Yeah, 100%.
So over there,
He's great as a solo angular DPS, right? And quite a lot of dive comps use that dive pressure in order to put their DPS into a good place, and having the counter dive at the same time is amazing.
Yes, and however, on the flip side, I do believe there is a way to salvage dive in Marvel Rivals that doesn't necessarily revolve around, well, we're just going to outlive everything and hopefully the dive works, and focus more on, well, you know, we can time this engagement, get the kills we're looking for, and get out. It's kind of why I didn't really appreciate Spider-Man's changes, because he was one of the DPS that really leaned into this. That if I time my engage really well, I come in, I'll delete you. Magic as well. I think those two are like the safest picks that you could have. But then there's problems where Venom, I really hate Venom's design, or where his strength is, which is if he's in the chance of getting punished, well, he'll just outlive it by pressing one button. Instead, I would really like it if Venom, one of the things that I've suggested, Venom's hitboxes on his tentacles are absurdly garbage, right?
In terms of being just really hard to hit, or?
Yeah, they're surprisingly difficult to hit. I've had a discussion about this with actually some of the pros as well. And it's one of the reasons he's held back from pro play quite a bit as well. He's just too inconsistent in applying that follow-up pressure, which of course is worse when you factor how easy healing and all these other things are to bring
Especially
up.
since so much of your pressure is in just being able to get that headshot. You can basically double the pressure on people.
Exactly. So what I would like, at least as far as like addressing Venom's current state, would be perhaps let's tone down the amount of HP he brings to himself as he's engaging, but let's make the rest of his kit or his primary fire a lot more consistent, so that pressure that is being brought out by him is really good. It's just when he's actually taking those engagements by himself, he can't really do anything. It's very easy for a support to just do X, Y, and Z and survive. But compare that to perhaps a Hulk, and very soon the Thing. They're just 10 times more consistent versions of the same character. in being able to bring
Yeah.
pressure. Same thing with Captain America.
See, why I want to pick this up is I think kind of like all of this seems to be intentional, right? From the dev team. It appears that Dive going pretty much infinite in terms of the amount of time they spend in and the resources they've got in order to stay in, or being this slap it in the face, hit it really hard and something breaks. Like, that seems intentional to me for the most part. And I think one of the reasons for this is just the way that peel works in the game. The way that so essentially all of the peel buttons are immunities that last for approximately 5 to 6 seconds. Would you agree with that for the
To some
most part?
extent.
So we got
To some extent, yeah.
yeah, we got Cloak and Dagger Bubble, we got Loki Lamp, we got every single character has some sort
Loki
of
Lamp
button.
is the worst offender.
Yeah.
Loki Lamp is the worst offender, but hilariously enough, and I might be somebody who's actually in the minority of this, but I think Invisible Woman for support design was actually a step forward and not back, as much as people might want to disagree. But she also in recency, she's fallen off the meta really hard, and gets replaced quite a bit. I kind of want to talk about it a little bit later because I think that is good. Ultron was also another character that I thought is much better than whatever the hell they were thinking when it came to Luna and Loki, and with the Cloak and Dagger bubble redesign, because Cloak's bubble didn't necessarily function as strong as it did until it got the buff it did, which I thought was ridiculous. I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
But
so what I'm essentially seeing here is that for the most part what happened is that when they designed supports, everything was so strong in the game that they wanted to give them a very easy out. So every single support got this kind of like immunity ability that just made them slash themselves around them safe for a long period of time. So the result of that was essentially you either insta-kill like the Black Panther, Spider-Man, that type of stuff, which it seems like the devs are more often moving away from at the moment. They don't seem to be too keen on the Spider-Man insta-kill. I think Black Panther and that sort of stuff is very obviously degenerate and not actually that healthy for the game, being able to just double dash out to double spear and just
thank you.
people.
I agree. I hate Black Panther. I hate the fact that he's popping up now.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That I needed to get that off my chest. It's really annoying to see him being defended.
It just seems like to me that one of the problems they're finding is because they have this kind of like infinite peel, and they're not really happy with these characters that can instantly assassinate through that peel or get there before the peel happens. The kind of like mid length of time that you spend in has kind of like been disincentivized in the game for the most part. So you have like Captain America that obviously is pretty much infinite in terms of resources. You have Spider-Man that is infinite in the way that they're always kind of in. And then you have the kind of like mid-range combo characters. But aside from that, I don't really see...
I would agree. Personally, I would agree with Captain America, but I would disagree with Spider-Man. I think Iron Fist might be a better candidate for what you're saying over there.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of value in the game in distraction, because the healing resources are just so high that when you have these really high healing resources that essentially make anyone immortal that you look at, when they get peeled, they always survive. When they don't get peeled, they never survive. So the answer is just kind of like we're in this attention-based economy where the only value you can get as a dive character is forcing these cooldowns, living through these cooldowns, and then distracting so that other people can die while they're distracted. It's kind of like this weird situation where, because the resources in the game are so large, the ability to just drain those resources gets a bit abstracted away. And for instance, like just being able to just go off on a moderate off angle and put pressure on the enemy team kind of does nothing in the game. I mean, you're either forcing out that cooldown and distracting, or you could just
I would disagree with that, personally.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So, first of all, I think it is also a little bit more reliant on character by character basis. I do like one of the strengths of Psylocke and why she's a big, like she has such a huge meta relevance, and even Human Torch, is because they can safely take these off angles or different type of angles where they can force pressure, force out cooldowns, and then engage with the team. That's actually one of the reasons why Human Torch gets played a lot, is because of how good he is at baiting out resources.
Yeah.
Not because he's an excellent duelist. To be honest, I've been trying to wrap my hand around why he is a part of them. Because I think Iron Man's just 10 times better, Storm is better. But when I had a discussion with Light, he's a Marvel Rivals pro, he explained that, well, Human Torch's strength is that he actually is able to, at least in coordinated environments, he's able to force out resources, and then we're able to take a safer engage. Same thing with Psylocke's prevalence in the game is because she can easily take those duels, use invis to get out. Namor is able to off angle very well because shift, and of course the pressure of the turrets. Like, good luck, trying to contest him the second he decides to take an off angle.
Yeah. It
And
seems...
I think it's like, yeah, it's like, sorry.
No,
If you
no,
don't
it's
mind,
okay.
but
It seems to me that while the healing sustain is incredibly high in the game, it's mostly rooted in big abilities and high single target sustain. The ability for teams to be able to generally keep them up versus AoE pressure, such as Human Torch, or just like damage to a lot of people, is quite low. So when you start doing that AoE pressure, it takes quite a lot of time for individual people on that team to get picked up, and that's probably why Human Torch is able to force out so many cooldowns. Not because they have the single target sustained pressure or enough to be able to force any particular person out, but because if anyone gets left behind for even a second or two, essentially, if you got a Psylocke on an angle or anyone else on an angle, they're threatened to die already, so they need to start pressing stuff. And that's probably one of the reasons why he's able to be a part of the meta in that way. It's interesting there because
that is a very good breakdown.
It's interesting there because this is probably a symptom of what I think is pretty much missing from Rivals in general, which is low effort or high reliability healing sources. So, for instance, like Brig Inspire, Lucio Healing Aura, Mercy Beam, all that kind of like residual stuff that doesn't really like do a lot. It doesn't really heal that much, let's be honest. It's not really able to keep up for the most part. But what it does, it makes it so that there's a low level of underlying sustain that allows individual characters to not be pressured out by, like, say, like 100 health being missing. Because that can become a massive issue when you end up with everyone independently making their own decisions on how to live and all making one step too far in terms of the amount of resources that you spend, because they really don't want to hedge their bets on not being healed and dying in a couple of seconds.
So on that same note, if there's something you don't mind me addressing, it's a character that I brought up initially in my reply, and I was trying to break down how it's like you said, single target pressure is what prevails the most in Rivals, right? Whether it's to bait out cooldowns, whether it's to try and isolate a target, it's all focused around, well, can we try to get this one person towards this other person, hyper focus them, and then see what happens from there. One of the in early season. Late season 1 and early season 2, one of the characters that was finding himself, and I always thought he was an underrated pick in this regard, that could break this form of gameplay loop, was Moon Knight. Moon Knight was able to constantly bring in AoE damage pressure, and in my personal opinion, he was also one of the few characters in the game that Loki really did not want to play into. Because my problem right now is, I think Loki and Luna, of course, they are the reason this whole group up composition is thriving, like, by far. And even in the grand finals and throughout the tournament, if a team wanted to play that more team-centric, like stay in our little bubble goats play style, you can't have it work without Loki or without Luna. They need to be present as a duo for that to thrive. Now, ironically, this entire problem that we're talking about actually just got solved with the new hero release, which is a more like strict hit scan version of Moon Knight, which is the Phoenix. And I'll talk about her later. But Moon Knight, what we were able to figure out from the scrims at the time that I was playing, was Moon Knight really incentivized people from grouping up. His boomerangs actually also bounced off of all the different Loki clones. And that was a huge
100%.
detriment to, there was a huge detriment to the grouped up playstyle, because teams were constantly either forced to split, or in a couple of nanoseconds, Moon Knight would have his ultimate and you all would be deleted before you could.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that Rivals has kind of like answered quite a few of these strategies with niche hero interactions that instead of like the general flow of the game, like the whole like Wolverine is gaining treble tank comps and that sort of stuff. For some reason they've decided niche hero interactions or kind of like AoE things that are part of the character is what they want to use to balance it, instead of just like the actual, I don't know, the actual flow of the average character kit. If you get what I mean.
Things get worse because then they decided that for some strange reason Moon Knight needed to be nerfed. And I really didn't agree with that,
you find problems.
because I think outside of that, Moon Knight is a terrible DPS because he has a really fat hitbox, and if he's not playing into those grouped up compositions, he's one of the easiest targets, if not the easiest target in the game to dive. And he gets taken out really fast. If not, he's very easy to also isolate and trace with hit scan, etc., etc. So I didn't really appreciate that logic, because again, it's like, well, then what counters this one other particular case of this grouped up comp? Now, in our little testing, a character that I still think is really underrated at this that thrives off of people grouping up together because she's able to take a lot of advantage. And I will always force this agenda is I think people underestimate Scarlet Witch's impact on how she was also thriving in a lot of grouped up. Now her E, which is like this little AoE time stop ability, was thriving a lot. Even in scrims, I had a chance to talk to Aramori about this.
Yeah.
And this was before some little buffs here and there, which was the fact like this was before Doctor Strange was a lot better. But in testing, Scarlet Witch also turned out to be a character that could not only thrive in that composition, but she was forcing a small shift in the meta. Until people realized with that composition, you're forced to play Strange, and there's Doctor Strange right now when Emma and Magneto are just 10 times better than him in every way. So you couldn't even have that as an option available. Could use Scarlet Witch.
It's really interesting that their answer to quite a lot of these I think these are core problems in the game. The incentive to group up, play goat-fish style, even if it's not goats in terms of being melee, it's goats in terms of survivability and the appeal so that people can't kind of like pierce into it and assassinate. Their answer is in terms of like 1 to 3 characters most of the time with these kind of like things. And the question is, right, is that just so fragile that it's so breakable? Right, like when we have hero bans, can you just like target ban like 1 to 2 characters? Right, if you maybe Wolverine and Scarlet Witch, can you just can you just ban 2 characters and then run a tank comp? Can you ban 2 characters and just run a triple support backline and be 100% fine? Like it seemed quite fragile at the high level, but I don't know.
They actually changed the way hero bans works to address this exact situation. Now I don't know all the details, but if I'm remembering it correctly on top of my head, not only did each team first get the protect, but they also got to pick the bans for the opposite team. Yeah. So if I'm not wrong, it wasn't the same bans across both sides. It was, well, we get to ban something that they're strong on, and then they'll ban something we're strong on, etc., etc. However, on that same note, I do agree with you that a lot of its issues that they try to solve is rooted in these niche interactions. Another trend that I saw them do, which is again, it baffles my mind that they try to solve this problem, then all of a sudden they're like, no, never mind, we don't want to solve this problem. Is actually the history of Iron Man's changes. I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough. Iron Man was a great counter. Anywhere he saw play, teams were forced to split up. Otherwise, he built his ult on cooldown. Every fight, Iron Man had an ult. And they specifically buffed his AoE in order to start dealing with these more gripped up compositions. In pro play, it's questionable, definitely questionable where Iron Man could be in. He saw play, then he was banned out and this and that. However, literally just now, they have decided to go ahead and nerf Iron Man's AoE. And then it just kind of goes back to, well, aren't we kind of feeding into the problem then?
I guess the question is,
we're lessening the options we have?
Yeah, do you think there's any alternative, though, rather than these individual heroes countering very good ideas of what to do in terms of grouping up and stacking peel and other things like that? With the kind of like, I assume it's a core philosophy that first off, one support should be able to generally keep up a team, even if the one support is bad in practice, and that every single support should have enough peel to be able to survive with their buttons for kind of like 10 seconds against most pressure, and have that as a reaction. I feel like that's there purposely done to make it so that the average low rank player can generally exist and have an okay experience, which is done to kind of like ease the onboarding hurdle into the game and make it so that they can more or less just, I don't know, get into the engagement, etc. Do you think there's an alternative with just those 2 choices? Because I'm not sure if there is. And then you just end up playing either roulette or just like flipping a coin every single time as to which single character you're going to use to be able to stop this happening. I'm sure it does work, but it seems so fragile to me.
So I will say, at least, like, again, this is my own personal experience, and I know everybody's will differ. I will say that I would apply this case a lot more to Cloak and Dagger being the Moira of Marvel Rivals, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of lower ranked players, if you're looking at it from their perspective, a lot of them cannot play Luna Snow for their life, and that's because she's hit scan. Her CC is difficult to land as well, and I don't mind Luna's kit. It's when we get to the ultimate where her problems begin. She's a different case. However, I do think like C&D and Loki, I don't think Loki's that difficult to play either. I think after a couple of games, you understand his loop and how to max value on him.
He seems complicated from the outside, but when you put down 2 clones, you start left clicking, right?
So I think Cloak and Dagger is the Moira of this game by far, and she's too easy at doing everything you just mentioned, right? However, I sadly cannot agree with the rest of the supports. I don't think Jeff by himself can keep up a team. Ultron can't do that either. Warlock literally cannot do that either.
Yeah, I think Warlock's
Invisible
clearly
Woman can't do
the
that either.
outlier there
Yeah,
in terms of the intent, right?
yeah.
Warlock, I feel, in my opinion, is intended
Ultron
not
as
to be
well.
able to keep up.
Ultron as well,
Yeah,
and
but
Invisible Woman
but then
by
again,
herself can't do
you
that.
think at the bare minimum base level, right? The depths of bronze, really like low level gameplay. I think they're targeting one sport to be able to keep up a team, not just in general, but just like very, very low rank play where people just kind of like they turn on their console 1 hour a week and play 20
Of
minutes
course.
of
No,
Rivals.
in that regard, the two worst offenders of this is Rocket and Cloak. Simply because I get in, I hold one button, and I get value. I agree.
Yeah.
As far as those two go, I can agree. But if it goes to Ultron, Adam, even Invisible Woman, they're actually trying to target this particular problem with Invisible Woman.
Yeah.
And the reworked Jeff, I think it's like I can't for the life of me say that their current iterations they're not good at sustaining compositions at all. It's one of the reasons why Adam and Ultron only time they see plays if it's in a triple support comp. They just don't have enough to keep
And because
resources
quite a lot
coming
of their output is the offensive pressure, and it's pretty natural that if you have a more healing focused character, they can't put out as much offensive pressure. And that's the reason why triple support didn't take off immediately, because first off, the supports in the game didn't put out enough offensive pressure to start with, but second off, the player base didn't know how to put out offensive pressure with supports. They were just kind of like,
I still think they don't.
Like 3 months behind.
Majority of them just don't. No, I still think they don't. A lot of them just don't understand how to output pressure on supports. But this is like a little support philosophy thing rather than it actually is like the accessibility of being able to pull it off. It's why I really like Invisible Woman's design. Is she secretly, like in ways that aren't related inherently to damage with her utility, she can hard carry fights if you know what you're doing. But because it's so hard to replicate that value repeatedly, people outright just give up at being able to replicate that. I mean, it's the same thing like if we flip on over to Overwatch, like the low elo problem is, why would I put in so much effort to aim on Ana or like learn a little bit more of some other characters when Moria just gives me that instant feeling of satisfaction that I can pick up, like sustain my team, and then also bring value with this like big beam that they've unnecessarily buffed over time. So at least when it comes to Rivals, I think the worst offender is Cloak and Dagger by far.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting to me because I like starting at the base rock of what they're trying to do and work out what kind of like falls out of it over time. And I think like if you just say, do you know what, every character more or less at very low level should be able to generally keep the team up, and they should have peel abilities in order to be able to survive, then I think the GOAT's playstyle and being like at middle to long range does fall out pretty naturally from that design. I guess the only reason why it doesn't
plays like that.
Yeah, I guess the only reason why it doesn't do that in Overwatch is pretty obvious, like 2-2 roll lock, but also the fact that the supports don't have that level of sustain necessarily. Like you have Lucio with lower sustain, you have Break that is lower sustain but able to peel. You have a kind of like a more textured format in terms of the support outputs, and when you remove that texture, when you just make it okay, well everyone can more or less put out 120 HPS onto a single target with some kind of like auxiliary healing on top of that, and they get so much of their value from that ult charge generation and using that ult on cooldown and the power of their ultimate that they can't step off main, then really I don't see a different way of balancing other than just saying, you know what, I'm just gonna hit them with a couple of very specific hero-based interactions that stop that being oppressive when it's stacked up too high.
Sure, but I just want to kind of take us over to Overwatch for just 1 second right now. In my personal opinion, I might like ruffle some feathers here, but I think a lot of that not happening in Overwatch now is blanket nerfed by the DPS passive. Remove that for a season and see what happens then. And I feel like that that DPS passive, as much as we don't like passives, I know you're in agreement with me that the DPS passive is absurd, especially where it is at right now. And we'll get to that when we get to it. But
personally, for me, it's ruining all fun that I have in the game.
Yeah. I fully
it's really damaging my ability.
You should see the state of the state of Stadium. It just completely ruined that mode for me. But when it comes down to it, I think one of the things that at least that I can vouch Overwatch for is it has this little blanket running with it right now, where it's like, hey, we have this little DPS passive, and if things get bad, we'll just like bump it up a little bit, and oh well, now the supports are upset. Well, okay, I guess we just reverted.
Yeah, and if you think of it from a design perspective, around the same idea as Rivals, right? Rivals wanted to keep everyone sustained relatively high so that one person could more or less keep up a team, more or less at the very low ranks. Sorry, I just hit my mic. And in the same way, I
Okay.
feel like it's a lot easier to do that with Overwatch. If you just don't care as much about the numbers and say, while somebody's in combat, nobody can keep them up regardless, you can then start buffing quite a lot of the low throughput healers in order to be like roughly the same level, and so have a more homogeneous experience at the very low rank. Specifically because, well, when they're in combat, they're never going infinite anyway. Even at the high ranks where everything's stacked up on top of each other. So I do think in that way, it makes it a lot easier to make a very easy onboarding experience for low ranks in terms of support gameplay.
Yeah, and on that same note, I think that as you've already mentioned, that is what they're aiming for. Like they want the experience to be easily accessible, and at least on this matter, I think they've made it clear with what they were initially when they made their season. Was it one video, or there was a little dev interview where they said that this is something that they want in their game, and at least as far as my opinion on it is like, well, okay, that's fine. What I want to see is consistency in the way that then, like, how do you balance it? Like, for example, I think it's absurd that Luna still has 12 seconds on her ultimate, but on the flip side, Mantis, Invisible Woman, and Cloak and Dagger are all relative to one another in ultimate strength. So it's come to the point that I actually don't mind playing against Invisible Woman, Mantis, because I feel like it's really, and also for what it's worth, the huge hot take, I know people might not agree, but I think there's a lot of windows now, at least now, as we go, there's a lot of windows to even counter these support ultimates. But I cannot speak the same way for Luna's ultimate's current state, and then the worst offender of this is, and there's very few ultimates in the game that can deal with them, because their answer is that, well, we do kind of want a rock, paper, scissors. But then the problem is the second rock starts to actually beat scissors, they go ahead and turn rock into mush, into paper.
Yeah, I'm not saying
like,
there's not a way to make the game work in this flow, right? It's very clear that if you have enough things that are options in order to beat one particular overpowered type of thing, then it's fine, right? The question is, with the amount of churn that Rivals is intending for its game, with the amount of team ups and other things like that, the fast patches, the quick release for heroes, will they be able to design these kind of like hammers to like hit down the nails enough or fast enough to be able to keep up with it? And if one takes over, then you end up with a sharp kind of like gameplay where you end up with like high extremes of quite a lot of the things.
I would say that there is two cases in the support role where they have shown that they're willing to immediately pick up the hammer and throw them out. One of them has been Mantis, which I think everybody that has played Rivals fundamentally agrees that whatever the hell they did to Mantis was extremely unjustified, and even now, she just saw her first set of buffs to help her feel a lot better. And it was all because of Luna. I'm gonna keep it real. And then on the other side, Jeff the Landshark. I mean, Jeff became the best DPS in the game, and that is clearly what they not intended for him. And they just outright, in literally half a season, reworked the character and threw him back as a proper dedicated support.
Okay, so do you want to get tinfoil hat on with me?
Yeah, sure.
So I watched a design frame video. It's only got 51k views. It's modern matchmaking, the case study from basically Rivals. It's got a load of investigation into EOMM, essentially, obviously, and how Rivals puts out, how Activision Blizzard have their kind of like articles about it, and all of the inner workings in the background. And from that, it's pretty clear that if the algorithm isn't already smart enough to tell that you're a Jeff that is DPSing, and it's not clear that the algorithm, although obviously this is something that you can easily apply AI to, the whole purpose of everything in these systems appears to be to reduce churn and reduce the amount of people clicking off the game. It's pretty obvious, but they very clearly spell out ways in which different categories have different churn risks associated with them, with wins and loss streaks. So for instance, support would give up on the game 5% more if they went 3 losses than 1 win, instead of DPS when they do the opposite.
I think either I've seen the video or I read the article myself.
Yeah, and my thought was, one of the possibilities with Jeff is that they purposely turned him into non-DPS because the algorithm was having a tough time predicting whether he was being played as a DPS or as a support, and therefore had a really tough time predicting his churn risk based on win or loss streaks. So essentially, they reverted him into a more main style support, the same as the others, to increase predictability within their systems and allow them to basically apply their algorithm more accurately to players. That's my tinfoil hat theory, that the change of every single support to be more or less homogeneous apart from Adam, in terms of I stand on main, I generally heal, I use my ult on cooldown, I do a bit of DPS when it's applicable, but I don't off angle for the most part. Maybe I do a bit of DPS off angle support, but not deep, right? I don't go away from main to do that. I feel like the reverting of most of the supports to this kind of like a playstyle, and even stuff like Spider-Man, right? If you think you have an EOMM system and you have a Spider-Man character that's incredibly variable on their output, right? Individual Spider-Man players from game to game are going to be completely stomping or doing nothing, incredibly feast or famine. I always look at that and I think maybe the point is that we're increasing the predictability, right? Maybe that's the point, because I think it's pretty clear that Rivals has a full algorithm-based EOMM system that is changing whether you're more likely or less likely to win games by at least 5% in either direction based on your churn risk. I think that is pretty obvious. So the question is, are they changing designs in order to speak to that or not? And I just don't know the answer. I feel like it probably is true. It's just such a hard thing, because you have no window into the back room, right? You're just kind of like left out, trying to put a finger to the wind and trying to tell, because I can't see. Obviously, I can see the design argument, right? Everything that's not intended, they don't want to not be intended, right? The Thor stuff with Awakening Room botting, that was very obviously what the devs intended the average playstyle to be with Thor from the start. They didn't intend it to be kidnapping people into your team. They didn't intend it to just be always playing for boops and then just like spacing around main. They intended him to be like farming his form and going into that form and then using the other stuff when it's relevant. So my question is it just the devs being normally reactionary towards new things or weird things being found in their game? Or is it specifically to increase the predictability of those type of characters?
Honestly, I'll respectfully disagree, and I would say that it was a reaction to Jeff just going completely in a direction that he just shouldn't have. I wouldn't say it was for a turn, because I could just use the argument that the Jeff players had an insane uproar. I don't know if you saw what happened at the Reddit, at the comment section. So I would say that, well, I don't understand how those players are now going to have a better time, since you inherently ruined all the fun that whatever the character had. It was just, the design was inherently toxic. Like the ultimate's really hard to, number one. Some of the times. Number two is the fact that with the Luna team up, who already is a meta like defining character, you now have this like unkillable DPS in your backline who can literally reduce his hitbox, enter safely, exit safely, take all the off angles of the word, snipe you from across the map, and then proceed to CC you if he's landing those shots, which are the sun. All right, like those projectiles were huge. So I generally think that once they realize that, oh crap, okay, well, this is not even Adam, this is not Ultron, this is something too much. That's when they decided, okay, we need to pull Jeff back a little bit, and that's why in his current iteration, there is no incentive to go to DPS.
And it's interesting because the first thing I saw, or I said when I saw Jeff originally, was they've missed a real big trick not making this character's healing or terrain, right? This is the e-girl character, right? This is the one everyone wants to come into the game to play, and they've made it actually quite hard for a very low rank player to be able to support on them. There was like a pipeline when the game first started of people picking up Jeff, then going on to Cloak and Dagger immediately, when they couldn't necessarily aim because they never picked up control in their life. It was really interesting
Jeff, Dagger,
to see.
Luna, that's the usual evolution.
Yeah,
with some Invisible Woman, but
it was interesting to me because I feel like they missed out on such a good opportunity to get a massive influx of players into the game and stay in the game. And even in this form now, I don't think this form is that much better for the average low-level player, which if any character is going to be aimed at the low-level player, surely the cute shark character should be the one, right? Like that surely that's the intent, but they flubbed it so badly in my opinion.
For Jeff, yeah, no, I agree. But I've come to terms with where Jeff is now. I kind of move it there because I still think Jeff, like, with some of his mechanics, I think it's too much. I think where he is now is fine. Like, he's an entry-level character. He has some annoyances that people at low level don't like, and then he drops off. one or two, just even 1 or 2 ranks after that.
Yeah.
Like I would say, he just works bronze, silver, not even gold and platinum,
Yeah.
and then he just drops off immediately.
And I personally, for me, I understand that the Jeff flanking playstyle was toxic in the way that it worked, right? It wasn't great. But however,
Yeah, it even saw playing pro play.
yeah,
like
in
a
my
couple of
opinion,
matches.
it was important texture for the game. And when you start removing texture like that, emergent complexity, things you don't expect, you really are narrowing the scope of types of things in your video game, in my opinion. And even if it was toxic, I'd rather them just keep it, and then just like increase the bubbles cooldown so it matters forcing bubbles, right? He had 6. Why don't you just make it so that it's a reasonable cooldown, so he can't stay in your backline forever, or it actually matters when he misuses 3 at a time in order
I
to
don't think
survive
the
the peel.
cooldown from the numbers perspective was the issue. I think the fact that it did burst healing to him and he could stack it meant
Yeah.
that there was no window for vulnerability for him to be punished. I think that was the core issue with him
Yes.
that the other supports don't have. A lot of the other, like for example, the second dagger loses a she's the skill in the support roster by far, not even up for debate. Then like Loki, well, Loki has a ton of ways he can survive, but his window should be that, well, after you get the runes or the crystals or whatever people call it out the way, he's a very exposed support and it's a high cooldown. Adam, after the shift is gone, every support kind of has this little gimmick going that if this is gone, it is like they are now open to being destroyed.
Yes.
Jeff didn't have that. Jeff could survive, and
But I would
perhaps
say
the only character.
my intent
one last
is to
point.
give him that punishability window, but still retain
Yeah.
the kind of like immortal infinite healing style, but only temporarily. So like if you push him out and he uses 3 bubbles, he's essentially AFK for a long period of time or has to go back to main, right? To preserve some of that kind of like identity of flanking and being a nuisance and not being killable, but at the same time make it so that doing that spends a valuable resource that you take a long time to regen. That was kind of like my intent, right? Like so just trying to preserve some of that while also making it so that pushing him out does matter, because if you force him for 300 health, he's going to be using something that, and that was the problem with the character. The bubbles just regen so much that you spend 3 bubbles on yourself. You could go in 4 times and spend 3 bubbles all 4 of those times before you run out of bubbles, right? Like it was just basically an infinite amount of healing. And sure, like I do think, you know what, taking away like maybe 30 of that or 50 of that and putting it on a heal over time would have been good. But you know what, I do kind of like the idea that a character can just be infinite in your backline and unkillable for a period of time. Just like it was just obviously crazy overtuned in my mind.
But that type of character, I think, is what they intended to exist in the DPS role, and you already have
Yes.
that with well, the damage dealers that are designed to do that. Now, me personally, whenever I've looked at support design, at least in hero shooters, I think I always care about trade-offs and opportunity cost. That if a character has a window to be able to execute something and they're really good at it, there should be a trade. That's why I really adored the original designs of
So you
because I felt like all of
for a
them.
second.
So
You said you
I might
enjoyed
have
the
to
designs of.
the designs of Zenyatta, Mercy, and Lucio, because each of them, at least back in original Overwatch, followed this design space that
Yes.
they excel at one thing, but then they fall off at another thing. And at least as it goes, I have to rejoin. 1 second.
You okay?
Okay, that should fix it. Sorry about that.
That's a quick fix.
Yeah. It's just this periodic thing that happens. But so I felt like progressively Overwatch kind of lost that. But then I'm not saying Rivals is perfect at it either. But the hope that I got so far has been with, again, Invisible Woman's design, where she's a character that excels at a particular style of gameplay, which is again unfortunately those grouped up comps. But they don't like that for her to just excel in that one niche. So they're in like, and also the grouped up comp. So they're nerfing her healing from that AoE perspective, and instead trying to help her out from a single target perspective, where overall it wouldn't affect her gameplay loop that much,
Yes.
but she'll feel a lot better to play. But her trade-off is that she's garbage at damage. She cannot do damage to save her life, but her utility is very good.
The pull is crazy, and as we already said, like
the push is underrated, and also
in that
the
middle
shift.
range poke comps, being able to assassinate with pulls or to make space is very valuable. Like the pull and push is crazy valuable on AK. I'd say it's about like 40% of her value in total.
Against dive comps, her shift was incredibly underrated. You could literally outright save teams from dives with the shift. Because it outright cancelled abilities. It was one of the main countermeasures against Wolverine, that your Invisible Woman would just time the shift. Wolverine comes in, really easy character to predict. He's very, very visible and loud. And the moment he just comes in, you just shift your general tank, and
Yep.
he survives. There's nothing Wolverine can do.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah.
It's interesting to me. I feel like quite a lot of the problems with Rivals kind of like they knit together into a what would you do otherwise kind of answer. I think
Sure.
what's your opinion on Rivals' lack of things like Harmony Orb and lack of off-angle or deep off-angle support due to the fact that supports should have like really high sustain and therefore
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lack of deep
yeah.
off angle support because originally in season 0, Mantis was able to take those playstyles to go off on those off angles because she had that original speed boost that kept her being able to get in and get out safely.
Yes.
And also, if somebody could reach her in time to punish her, her sleep spore would just halt them in place. So that either she confirms the kill right there or uses that time to basically get out.
Yes.
Now, current Mantis is a completely different topic, but the Harmony Orb thing is actually something that was experimented with another version of Dive with Ultron, and the logic with his
Yes.
little bots and nano drones or whatever they're called. Is that he's being trying to that we're trying to shoehorn him in dive comp in this play style where you throw it on the venom, you throw it on the magic, and they're allowed to now take much more. Especially a character like Magic and Spider-Man, the second they have it, they can take a very long extended duel that they perhaps couldn't do before. So I think the potential is there, but the core problem that comes back to the first spot, which is that the GOAT's playstyle is a lot more encouraged, is also because I think well, there's a little bit of this is my personal hot take. I think the community is too immature to even experiment with these comps. I think they're too scared. I'll say it. I think the community is scared. It's something that I've discussed here and there, where it's like, yeah, well, we could try this, we could take the risk, and perhaps it even works out. But is it worth it when this is just a safer and easier thing to do? So rather,
Yeah.
I would
And it's
would
maturity in two
address,
different ways, right? It's
yeah,
maturity in terms of
yeah,
education of hero-based shooters
yeah,
and lack of
and
maturity to actually
exactly,
experiment.
exactly, and I think the first thing you could do to at least alleviate these grouped up comps to excel again before I get to the Phoenix, is Cloak and Dagger Bubble really needs an appropriate nerf. I think that is the worst defender. It literally holds low elo grouped up comps together
Yep.
for free. If you try to play against a low elo grouped up comp without C&D, you can just have the time of your life.
And
It's a
Loki
different game.
Beacon as well.
And Loki, yeah, I was coming to Loki just now. I was coming to Loki now. Yeah. And now at Pro Play, it's not C&D. The upgraded version of C&D, because there's a better ultimate to use 90% of the time, is Loki.
Yeah.
And those two, I think, are, at least in terms of support design and allowing supports to even perhaps experiment and do something else, those two abilities, not even the characters perhaps themselves, is what's holding back the supports, just the entire role by itself. Because Ultron allowed for some really interesting things to happen in the compositions that he got featured in, which was a huge surprise to a lot of people, since it was predicted that Ultron would be bad because low healing, lol. And then on the opposite end, yeah, and then when Loki first released, like the playstyle everybody wanted to do on Loki was the flank Loki playstyle, which was incredibly fun to execute. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it wasn't. But then it's like, well, why should I do this one little risky thing when I can just kind of go back to my team and sit with them?
Exactly, and you get such a large amount of your value just by rotating on anyway. It's not good to do these things. It's just that it seems heavily disincentivized by the game, right? I think that's my problem more than anything.
I also, as far as the skill floor heroes go in Marvel Rivals, this is perhaps something that maybe is not as bad in Overwatch as it is in Rivals, is that if you look at the skill floor characters like Jeff and Rocket, I'm not going to put C&D there because I know there's a little bit more skill to her. Jeff and Rocket, like if these are the characters that people first pick up to play support because they're new to the hero shoot or whatever, they also just incentivize you to just sit behind the team and keep yourself safe. There's not really anything in their kit that tells you, at least Jeff now, that tries to communicate to the player that, hey, by the way, you can kind of go away and do something else. Now, I guess you could argue maybe Jeff's ult is the only thing that perhaps allows for a very unique form of gameplay making on support. I actually really like his new ultimate as well. I think the idea is actually very cool.
I think the concept behind Jeff from the devs is that you can be on main, and then you can go off for 5 seconds on an off angle, use all your right clicks, and then try and put pressure on or assassinate somebody, then go back to main. Right? That's kind of like where the devs see it, but it seems like
you can't do that anymore.
It just seems like the devs are really struggling to incentivize players in a way that gets them to do that type of stuff and not just sit behind their team, right?
One more thing on that same note, right? Is something I've always thought about, even for support, because I see a lot of tweets, Reddit threads, and this and that. I also just think it's perhaps a support player mindset to fall into this gameplay loop, and that was actually coming to the point that I wanted to talk about with Jeff and Rocket. Is that it builds this like psychological thought process that this is the safest thing for me to do. I should continue to do this thing because like nobody can blame me that this is the wrong thing to do. Like, for example, let's say you go on a Loki flank and it doesn't work out. Well, now people flame you because you weren't behind healing. Like the team would have carried you.
Yeah.
The list goes on. You see the same thing happen.
The trouble is, it's such obvious value to the rest of the team when they use one of the very powerful support ultimates that obviously if they don't have the support ult at the time, they're going to get flamed by the team because they were doing something else. Now, we could actually complement that by maybe like increasing the amount of ult charge they get through damage. That would probably be a reasonable
I think the game
way
needs a global ultimate charge, just around 15 to 20%.
Yeah.
The game just needs a 20% ult charge increase, and I think it's fine. It still maintains the chaotic, appeal of the game, but it gives just this window for neutral gameplay to become a lot more important.
Yeah.
Because that's what I liked about Invisible Woman, her kit. From not a damage perspective, but utility-wise leans into generating value that doesn't necessarily involve healing.
She's one of the rare ones that has neutral power.
Yeah, I really like
especially
her.
the pull. Obviously, at high level, you're saying you use it more to peel, which I think is bad if we use it more to peel. Maybe you should increase the cooldown if you use it to push instead.
It depends on the map. Honestly, it depends on the map.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where one of my main problems with Rivals is so little happening in neutral in comparison. I'm not saying nothing happens in neutral, but I think so little happens. So I find it very hard to... The trouble is, if you have support ultimates so good, right, like they're such a large portion of the support role's value, then how do you incentivize the support to ever go off main and do more interesting things? Sure, at the high level, people kind of like understand that they can do it, and Ultron Beacon's going to be used on off angles the same way Luna's Beacon is used on off angles.
I think for just this particular topic, let's leave high level out of this because that's a different problem entirely.
Yeah.
But at least the average player, I think perhaps what I like about again the Invisible Woman problem is that it's hard to somehow communicate to the player that this one thing you just did was good. Like somebody that's new to hero shooter will never understand that, oh, me pushing away this target is good, me pulling somebody in is good. They'll never understand. They'll be like, oh, I don't understand, like this is stupid. I pulled somebody in to get my team killed. What did I just do? You know, like that's the first thought process that I actually heard from one of my friends. And I was like, you know what, you're a lost cause. I ain't even gonna bother. But like when it came down to Ultron, I think Ultron did a much better job at this because the entire marketing around him is that, well, this is the DPS support and you have to play him DPS style. And then even, I didn't want to bring in higher level play into this, so let's just say at the highest ranks, the hyper fast aggressive Ultron dive comps is something that happens. With the Iron Man shoehorned in to bring like that initial sustain that, okay, we'll take this little poke war, we'll get in position, and then everybody goes in, Ultron has ultimate, and we take a really fast fight, we win, and then it goes from there. I think that is some place where Ultron was kind of a light in the darkness that, okay, I think, because one of the things I discussed with a good friend was, I think the reason there were so many heal circles was I think that was just the devs also being afraid of a ban meta. Because I don't know if you've played the League of Legends, but like that is something that a dev over there talked about, that sometimes a mirrored ultimate or ability concept is shared across characters because they're afraid that if a certain ban meta happens, it might allow certain other characters to excel perhaps in a way that they shouldn't.
And then we should...
Yeah, and then there should be a little option. So I think perhaps maybe it was a little bit of an oversight, but I'm happy that at least when it came to number one, Jeff's rework, number two, Ultron's direction, that they didn't lean into just, okay, you get an AoE circle, you get an AoE circle, everybody gets an AoE circle. They didn't lean into that. So I'm really happy that now I guess the nail in the coffin would be to see what the next support does. Because if that's an AoE circle, then it's a bad sign. But if it's not an AoE circle, then it's thumbs up.
It'll be an AoE circle that gives you 10% movement speed or something. Oh, variety.
That would be great. No, I'm kidding. But like, I think also inherently one of the problems is I think the devs, at least for Rivals, do lean into giving supports the fastest satisfaction as possible, and that's something that I think, like, if you look at low-level Overwatch, metal rank Overwatch,
Yep.
that is something that a lot of those players want too. Funnily enough, I kind
I
of say
don't
this
think
a lot.
it's necessary. I think there's a massive support player base that is
I'm
pretty
a little bit
grassroots.
50-50.
And
Yeah, I'm a little bit 50-50 on that.
it's a tank player base that we always known have been struggling. I think the support player base and the people that want to generally sit back and do general healing has always been massive in these type of games.
Yeah,
So I
of
don't
course.
think you needed
Even in other
to
game types.
cater to them in that way. I think it's absolutely fine to just leave them with a diverse set of things they can do and let them filter themselves into the couple of characters that are a little bit easier or a little bit more botty, while making the rest of the characters more diverse, like Ultron.
Yeah, but
like,
these are also the people that are the most likely to spend money on your game. So if you want that cash coming in for your next PvE Overwatch 3, you're going to need them to start spending a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a coincidence that that playstyle is on Luna Snow.
Yeah, it would
Okay,
be
and then
very
the
interesting
diversified
to tell
playstyle,
who's spending the
you
most
know,
money between the
uh,
roles, wouldn't it? And we all know what the real answer is. We all know it's support,
yeah,
but it'd be
I don't
interesting
want
to
to
see what the
debate.
actual split is.
It certainly would be, but I think the devs care more about leaning into that. Well, what is this fantasy that these people want right away, and let's just give them that. A DPS role is an echo of this as well. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
that have played hero shooters, they enjoy the aspect of, well, I want to go big as quickly as possible, right? And at least majority, not all, majority of the characters in DPS have some way, especially in their ultimates, to just immediately give you that feeling of, wow, look at that, you just really popped off. You know, and that was actually one of the biggest appealing points for Overwatch once upon a time, and now it's a different story. But tank is a different story. I think anybody that's watched my content knows that I have a very aggressive stance on tanks, and I piss a lot of people
This
off
is gonna be
whenever
fun.
I talk about it. Yeah, that's where my spicy takes come in. But for Overwatch in particular, I'm not going to talk about rivals because it's a little bit 50-50 there.
Yeah, sure.
But I think Overwatch's tanks, wow, I have a lot of heated things to say about it. That's my like softest way that I can word that at the moment.
Okay, let me just finish my like general
Yeah,
thoughts
sure,
on
sure,
rivals
sure.
at the moment before we go into Overwatch.
Yeah, of course.
So personally, from my point of view, there's two things, like real big core gameplay elements missing from rivals that are the reasons why I like this genre, and they're not missing. They're kind of like disincentivized by the game. The first is the first is just off-angle support in general. Obviously, if you have a Psylocke on an angle, you want to support it and keep it active continuously. But I do feel like Overwatch has a lot more consistency in that kind of like way.
Yeah, sure.
Mantis, sure. But I feel like even then, Mantis's big pulse of impulse healing forces you to be always within LOS of the person when they're active. Whereas
at least comparatively, her healing is actually very low.
yeah,
And it's why she's been out the meta, unless it's triple support.
yeah. Plus wanting angles, reinforcing angles, the ways that different support levels interact with certain different characters. That's kind of like what makes it interesting to me in general. And I think there's not enough texture in the game in terms of rivals. Sure, they're bringing some of it in, and I've always said there's no reason why they can't bring this in, especially with Ultron Beacon. But even the fact that Ultron Beacon's an AoE effect, right? The fact that it's an AoE effect disincentivizes you for putting it on one person. If you had two individual orbs that went on two different targets, then you could much more easily just say, oh, that person's going off into fucking Narnia, let's put one on them and use that, right? So I feel like that part of the game been like disincentivized, and I don't think there's a reason to, aside from being scared of pocketing, right? Being scared of the mercy with hit scan problem. I think that's probably why. What do you think the reasoning is there, or whether it's true at all?
Can you just restructure that question? I kind of got lost.
Yes, so I think reliable or consistent healing modes onto off angles are kind of like disincentivized in rivals. Do you agree? What do you think the reason is?
At the moment, as of season 2.5, I agree. That's as far as I can give that comment, because I do believe that Phoenix coming into the game and assuming she's not getting hyper banned will force a very different style of rivals. Because it's what I'm talking about. I personally think this evolving into the being allowed to take those off angles and those type of playstyles is what slowly the game could have evolved into if they leaned into AoE damage a bit more, with Iron Man, with Moon Knight, with Black Panther also thriving against comps that are grouped up.
Yep.
But anytime those characters start to see any form of relevance, which is weird to me, especially the Iron Man case and Moon Knight, they tried to buff them into relevancy. They achieved what they wanted to with those two characters, and then they were like, no, never mind, we like that other playstyle more, and then threw them out of the meta, which was just extremely awkward in my opinion. And then on the side, they just bought Phoenix, who literally does what Iron Man and Moon Knight do with a little bit of a different flavor. And
I
pretty
think
much
Black
my hope
Panther's
is
just
in
so
yeah.
sad to me. If I just had Black Panther with non-instant kill ability, unless they actually commit to a single target, and we give them kind of like Ultron Beacon, right? I think that becomes a very interesting AoE type character, and they kind of just sidestep these, and I do wonder if it's on purpose or not, right? Like they're so close to it the time.
One more thing on the mention. I think also there is a small issue with the tanks, because a lot of the times it's like I said, the best form of dive in Rivals is still sustained based dive.
Yeah.
Rather than dive that is about staging a play and making that, like in Overwatch, for us when we play the Winston comps, we are staging a dive, engaging, erasing a target, or forcing out cooldowns, re-engaging. The life goes on from over there. In Rivals, it's like, hey, well, we just want to go in, force out these cooldowns, or perhaps even overcommit into those cooldowns, and then just get out and restart the fight, and then the cooldowns are back anyway, and then it's just a race of, well,
and
who
I do
wins,
wonder how you
ultimately.
deal with that in Rivals, because obviously you say like nerf Cloak's Bubble, nerf Loki Beacon, those kind of like hard peels, those kind of like abilities. Sure, like we all know that lamp and instant immunities are kind of like toxic, but it seems like they've done that on purpose in order to make the lower rank support player experience more palatable, and I wonder if they'd be willing to peel those back in order to let the average gameplay experience be a little bit more interesting. But then again, you make it more interesting at the expense of low rank support players blowing up, right? So it's a really tough one. I don't know how they fare.
I feel like from that perspective, it also gives a window for support players to start evolving their playstyles too. Is as if you stay in this funny enough cloak bubble all the time, you'll never leave your safety bubble and find a way to perhaps make cloak work as a flanker with your Psylocke and applying those discord walls and thriving, rather than just staying in Dagger's bubble and do absolutely. So more cloak, let's go for those flanks with our Psylocks, and less Dagger bubbles to sit in our little safety net.
100%.
That's what I would like.
That's what I'd like to.
I think,
100%.
Yeah, and one more thing on that same note, because I do believe our initial topic was about mitigation stacking. Tanks need to take the hits where it's deserved, and not just here, but I think Watch as well. Venom is the worst offender of this, and it's second to Captain America. Is these two can be really fun dive tanks in that melee-esque playstyle, but their entire value comes more from, well, I get to live, survive, and repeat and force out cooldowns, rather than, well, I get to engage and now commit to a target. Captain America trying to commit to a target upon first engage is an easy kill for everybody in the lobby.
Yes.
Same thing with Venom. He comes in, you just grab him with Bucky's arm, hold him in place, a sleep dart, a freeze comes out, the Emma choke slams him into the fourth side of the corner, and there's nothing he can do about it.
I think my concern there is that would these dive tanks still be able to operate if they didn't have these amount of resources, with the acknowledgement that when they first engage, there's always going to be a cooldown to stop them doing anything, right? It feels like these cooldowns can overlap in so many different ways, especially at low ranks, that it feels useless unless you're just trying to get distraction value to dive. Especially because you have to stack multiple dives.
At least in my personal opinion, I think it is possible. But because, like, for example, as a hypothetical scenario, if a Hulk goes for a dive, he has a very strong bubble that can just negate anything for the 3 seconds it comes up or 2.5 seconds it comes up, right? Or Captain America's shield becomes a little bit more paper thin, so that the window to being able to interact with him is a bit faster.
Yeah.
I've already said for Venom, I think like them leaning, like Venom is a fun character. His problem is that he's all about, well, existing. Like the best way to play him is just exist and don't die, and you get 10 times value. But if you remove that and you lean into a little bit more lethality, then you can get that same high that Winston players got back in 2016 when they were trying to do their Miro cosplay from World Cup. All right, and I just think like Rivals with their dive tanks is very question mark, leaning more in sustain rather than let's go a little bit more lethality. And I think that is something that Thor and perhaps the Thing have over the other three that I just talked about, because the tanks that typically enjoy these two are all about, well, I kind of want to go in and make a play, and that's what Thor is about. That's what Thing is about. They like when they're in, and they have to commit. I like that. I think there's a world where you can make that work. I also don't think their poke/brawl hybrid tanks are that bad either. I do think, however, their dive tanks and some dive DPS are in a really problematic state, and a lot of that has to do with sustainability.
Okay, so I think this is a good dropping off point for the second thing that I think is really missing from the gameplay. I think in terms of tanking, it is a resources mattering. In terms of aggressive stuff, like as Megamon said, Zarya Bubble, there is no
Yeah.
Zarya Bubble that is used aggressively in the game. There's Magneto Bubble, but it's horribly tied into the rest of the kit. It's on a very long cooldown, so you're inclined to use it defensively
Okay.
to peel
I
instead
would
of aggressively.
respectfully, I would respectfully disagree because the
Yes,
Bruce Banner Captain America dive was utilizing the bubble onto Captain America
sure.
plus Iron Fist in that exact way. So
Yes.
I would say that again, like if you nerf like those support sustainability cooldowns, you will see the feedback about that aggression in the engagement being given to the player that hey, this was something good that you did because you actually got value out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have those strong support cooldowns that like the Loki crystals, the cloak and the worst again, like I said, cloak and dagger is the worst because it's the most popular one that we'll
Yes.
see in the low and metal ranks. And as you go, that's the easiest one because even though it's just a little AOE circle that gives healing, it is able to, my favorite word, ruin breakpoint interactions for tanks specifically from feeling rewarded from an aggressive play. And then they're forced to just like back off and then try again and hope to God a DPS comes in with them and find value. So there's a lot of potential there. And I still really enjoyed the game, but I think it's like, we're almost there if we can just look at these little things on the side.
I'm concerned there. You said that the Hulk and Captain America team up, allowing one person to put aggressive resources into the other person, right? That was what you're talking about.
Yeah, so generally the way the dive would work is
Yeah.
the two of them would go together, and assuming Iron Fist is there as well, the
Yeah.
Hulk bubble gets spread out. I think you know this gets spread out in a little
Yes.
AoE. So
Yes.
you've now caught 3 people in the dive that have already taken different cooldowns, have now survived them, and in the best scenario can now overcommit and force the aggression rather
Yeah.
than be forced to back off. And that is one way that is worked.
Like, I agree that exists, don't get me wrong. I think this is what you're seeing there is something that's like so niche that it's essentially not in the game for the majority of player base though. It does exist.
It was replicated and ranked quite a bit.
That is the purpose of Hulk, don't get me wrong. That's the purpose of the design of the bubble. To use it aggressively into things. But the fact that you can play these type of characters without Hulk and them still have to exist has made it so that the devs have to have designed these characters to be able to do this type of thing, maybe less to a degree, but do this type of thing without the bubble as well. Meaning that essentially what they've done is they've made it so that they can't do as much with the bubble because the proportion of extra stuff they can do is just less. So I look at Reinhardt with D.Va, right? Reinhardt D.Va, 2 seconds of DM, crazy ridiculously good, right? I'd say Reinhardt does about 80 to 100% more in terms of aggressive stuff with D.Va on the field. With Rivals, with that Hulk bubble, I see it and I think like, sure, they can keep committing, but they're committing into infinite sustainability stuff. And also they're committing, but all of the characters that have to have already been given so many resources that they can more or less commit anyway, just in a less aggressive manner before they disengage. So I feel like because of the lack of extremes there, the game kind of like washes out for the most part. And these type of... Go ahead.
Yeah. I felt like Rivals actually took this the reverse direction, where rather than tanks enabling each other to do more, they rather leaned into tanks allowing DPS to do more. At the moment, Bruce enables Namor to do more. Before it was Iron Man. You have Doctor Strange who's enabling Scarlet to do more. You had Venom enabling Spider-Man to do more. I think their general idea and approach is a little bit more, well, we would rather make it a lot more obvious from a tank to DPS perspective rather than a tank to tank perspective that isn't the particular 4-combo brawl poke tank hybrid, because I would argue otherwise that as far as Doctor Strange, Emma Frost, Groot to go, they do use their resources interchangeably towards one another in order to allow for more aggressive plays or on the other side, passive plays.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that you're saying about being used more on DPS than on tanks in terms of the bursty type of resources that you can allow other people to do, or the bursty stuff that certain tanks allow DPS to do. I've always thought that bursty resources applied to DPS is kind of like a awkward design direction to go, specifically because DPS have such sharp interactions with other characters that if you make it incredibly good to always apply those bursty DPS resources when it matters, essentially what you're doing is you're completely tipping every duel or every interaction those DPS get into being lethal in their direction. Whereas when you incentivize it to being used on tanks and on doing more tank pressure, essentially what you're doing is you're allowing the tanks to take more space instead of be more lethal or other things like that.
I think, at least as far as the a comparison goes for now, I think Rivals doesn't really also have the full tank roster fleshed out. Overwatch has 8 years behind it to where tanks not only have evolved their playstyles and at least right now are incentivized to be a lot more aggressive at times because of the DPS passive. Rivals is still in the early phase of, well, like for example, I mean, people would have never predicted that Captain America would have been the meta-defining tank for Season 2. He was being called the worst tank in the game. And then all of a sudden you have like a little bit of switch up, and then there you go.
100%.
Like with the Hulk, like you now have a comp that's diving in, that's forcing out resources, surviving, overextending duels, frustrating support players like crazy, and then they get sent to the... That's a different topic, right? But my point is I think, like, I agree. I think as far as at least the dive-centric composition and Rivals go, which is when I send you my bullet points, I said like dive is currently the worst offender of this, and why I think like they can't pull off dive in that game. They don't have the dive roster just. At least maybe in tank figured out properly just yet. However, I do think with Season 3 the thing could be that missing link, because with his new ability and rework to the way it works, it might actually just incentivize that. I don't know if you know what he does now, but it is something.
I'm not on board. Basically, when they reworked Jeff, I left the video game because I wasn't enjoying the average gameplay loop, and after that I've not gone back because I'll be honest, for the most part, I was a support player, and I'm a support player in the type that I like consistent off-angle resources and leveraging them, that sort of thing. If I don't have that in my game, I kind of just like, I don't engage with it very much, so yeah.
That's fine, like, you know, different flavors for different people, and that's completely fine. I think we should, well, as far as communities goes, we should be respectful to hearing each other out and all this type of stuff, but I like yelling about philosophies a lot more than yelling at other content creators. That's kind of my... So as far as that goes, I think it's like, hey, you know, we're almost at year 1. I think as far as the first year is gone, there's certainly interesting liberties being taken here and there. I think they have their poke brawl way more figured out than they have figured out their dive. I think that is like the biggest takeaway today is poke brawl is a lot more figured out than dive, and I think but perhaps there's potential with the thing next season, which a lot of people in the pros are banking on, that the thing is just about to make a completely new version of the game with what he's able to do. So I think that's great. They took the most one-dimensional tank ever created and actually gave him a lot of depth, which I find very surprising. And I hope it's just thumbs up from there. And support also gets figured out from what we've discussed with sustainability and leaning more into perhaps giving supports a way to feel like feedback that, hey, this one thing I did, being more aggressive is a good thing.
Because one of those things everyone always says, like, supports in Overwatch, and I said they've disincentivized being aggressive with certain things they've done in the future. But it's always been good to be generically aggressive on support in all games. Like, that's always been good. It's just hard to give feedback, and it's hard to have people understand that in the low ranks when they get so much of their value based off ult charge and ult cycling, right?
I will say one more thing before we move on to the Overwatch topic, is I think Overwatch forced support players to feel it with the DPS passive, especially when we were in Season 2 of Overwatch 2. Those Reddit comment threads and the horrible words to the devs on Twitter, like, they really did not like that. And I mean, history is kind of repeating itself yet again, which is why I feel like the current balance patch that we do have on Overwatch, most of it might just see a small revert. If not, I'll be genuinely surprised. And like, they are forced to feel that, well, you know, healing is not the best thing all the time, so let's have you go do something else. And because of that, whether they like it or not, they're forced to evolve their playstyles slowly and more progressively over time. I guess the ones that surprised us the most was like all those Moira TikTok, despite how much I despise the character for being a low kill floor, very this and that. I think the one thing I could praise about it was the fact that that particular community really enjoyed the whole, well, now I get to... Yes,
it showed all support players the different playstyle, whereas some people just wouldn't have realized it. Right? It's just a general community education thing, and I was hopeful that Jeff would do the same for Rivals players, but apparently he needed to be shot in the back of the head. So, you know,
he was very toxic.
I guess to summarize,
I like the character,
I'm just a bit concerned for me that dive cannot be fixed in Rivals without toning down the sustain cooldown for supports, and that they don't want to turn down those sustain cooldown for supports. it's very concerning because I feel like dive is just, for the most part, unless you have two people, turned off completely at the low level by cooldowns, and therefore there's no reason to stay in for a mid-length of time. You're either in and out instantly and just hitting instantly,
I would disagree. I would say it works way more in low elo than it does in high elo. High elo dive just doesn't exist, but in low elo dive is everywhere.
That's true, actually.
Case in point is like Black Panther and all the magic rage bait, like tweets and everything. Like those two characters, Black Panther, Magic, they literally disappear.
Yes.
And that's just because
I feel like those characters, those dives, work not through anything else but getting there before the cooldowns come out. Right? They get in, they get their insta-kill, then they fuck off because people don't react that fast in low ranks. My concern is the moment that they react, these characters are basically turned off for 5 to 8 seconds. And then in low ranks, it can feel very swingy and very oppressive. And if you don't adjust the bubbles and this type of stuff and give them more soft ways of escaping or get them to have to preempt the diver coming in some way, shape or form, then I don't think you can really fix low rank at the low rank or the high rank, dive at the low rank or the high rank. I think they're in a bit of a net. I think all the problems kind of like commingle.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Cool. I guess we should.
Yeah, sure. Honestly, I would go on way too long because this is such I told you, like, I've not had anybody to actually sit down and discuss this with. So, like, it is exciting. Like, I would yap about it a while because there's so much perspectives to be had. But outside of that, like, it is what it is. We can move on over to Overwatch.
Yeah,
and
pleasure.
I think we are in agreement that the DPS passive is a huge disappointment, going up to 30%.
Yep.
And personally, when it has come to Overwatch, I personally feel like the game is in a loop, and it just it is stuck in the we want to make everyone happy, and we don't really know what we want to be, and every season will be like its own thing. And if you emotionally invest into one state of the character, next season off they go. Like, I mean, who are we kidding? Tracer next season is gone. Like, sorry, or next patch. I'll be surprised if they keep it the way it is.
Yeah, it's literally cyclic balancing, isn't it? Very obviously
and
cyclic
it's incredibly
balancing.
Annoying. I personally find it incredibly annoying because what I want from balance, at least in the most perfect utopia that balance is you bring everybody down to a healthy level for depending on their skill floor, skill ceiling, yada yada, and then you look at the really unhealthy character who couldn't make work, and you start investing time and resources to reworking them and making them much better than where they were before.
Yeah.
And then bring them into the game and then take them from there. Now they're a completely new character, and then you see how it goes. I would like that, but with Overwatch, its balance for me particularly is just again, like with the I know I'm the Genji crybaby or whatever, but it's like I wrote this huge 16 tweet thread
Man,
where
that is crybaby.
I really wanted no, it wasn't crybaby. I was really trying to understand the philosophy, because even back in season 1.5, when they initially, I think, or season 2, when they did nerf Genji, and funnily enough, it was around the time Sojourn, I wanted to understand, well, why is it that his breakpoints got hurt and his combos got hurt, but we didn't actually go after Sojourn? And that's kind of something that even in the past few seasons they've kind of done, where, I mean, there was a point where just Hanzo just couldn't snipe anymore, and then they nerfed different things, and then embarrassingly, one by one, we had to walk back all of he's been completely reverted.
It's very interesting, season 9 and the progression of the game since then, hasn't it? Because season 9 was a complete, basically, revert of the idea that sharp damage on certain DPS characters should be able to exist in the game. They very much purposefully changed it so that damage was a lot softer, or there were less insta-kills and there were less sharp stuff in the game. And then I feel like a month down the line, they realized that without those sharp things and those insta-kills, if sustain gets to a moderate degree and you can't break down the enemy team through just whittling them down, the only thing keeping that in check was the breakpoints to begin with. Right? Like, if they got a lot of sustain, at least Genji can fucking just dash in and insta-kill somebody, right? You've still got a chance to do that. But they took so long to realize that this was a core component of the texture. This was half of the game you just tried to remove for no reason. And sure, you only removed it on certain characters, but...
It felt like, I felt like also what's not fair...
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. You can go first. It's all good.
No, I just think one of the topics and one of the purposes of Season 9 was to reduce the sharpness of the game in the way that it is lethal to people, so that low-rank
Of
players
course.
don't think they're just being insecured out of the blue, out of nowhere. But really, when you remove the sharpness of the game, you leave the game open to loads of resource generation, exploitation. And that's basically where we ended up very shortly down the line.
No, I agree, but in regards to all of that as well, what I was not particularly a fan of with the way the balance was handled, like post season 9, was at least for me in particular, it's always been like we are told one thing that this is the goal with balance and we want to achieve it, and then less than a couple, maybe not even like 1.5 months later, they just walk back everything. Like for example, when we moved into season 9, the idea was that they wanted to increase the amount of time to kill, which was obvious because first of all, it was painfully obvious they wanted to make the game play and allow for longer windows of weapon
So you're cutting
so
out
that
a
people
little
could
bit
respond.
again.
By the way, am I breaking?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
cut out for half. Yeah, you cut out for like half a second a couple of times in that sentence. It's not very long, but wait, your mic is active, but I can't hear
is
you.
it?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, sorry about that. So, that was the goal with season 9, where it was like, well, we want to increase the amount of time it takes to kill someone. And one more important thing was, they didn't initially compensate breakpoints even across tank, right? Because at that time, if I remember correctly, tank's lethality dropped a lot. All of them had to take like one extra source of their main damage to be able to kill something.
Yeah.
And then came season 11 where they were like, yeah, by the way, you know that thing we just changed the entire game for? Forget about that. It's the Kaiju Watch season. Tanks can now do this
Yeah.
and that. They all can survive. They can do this damage. They can also do this and that. And if you
I
don't like it,
think
well, go fuck yourself.
since Overwatch 2 and especially since Season 9, the messaging on what their intention is with the game has been very confused. Like Def says, the explicit intention was to reduce the frustration from dying to random large bursts of damage, right? Like that was one of them. But I think Season 9 and the hitbox changes had a load of different like ideas behind it that were all kind of like interknitted. Like one of them was just basically making it so that lower ranked players could play hit scan more easily by increasing their hitboxes. Because they got that instant acceleration in the game. Like the only video game that fucking exists with instant acceleration in the entire almost world. I mean, there's a couple of them, but it's very rare to find any game with this fast acceleration. And players at the low rank just actually can't play it. And to me, like, Rivals doesn't have instant acceleration, it has slow acceleration. Like, TF2 doesn't have instant acceleration. It was kind of crazy to me to think back, like, how many players Overwatch must have hemorrhaged in its first, like, couple of years. Just because people are coming over from World of Warcraft and they couldn't use a controller or use a keyboard and mouse. So, like, obviously it was to make it so that the onboarding for low rank players was a little bit easier, but also we had the kind of like idea of tanks being hated on at that point. We had the idea of reducing sharp damage, and all of these kind of like interknitted to the point where I what's instant acceleration? So instant acceleration, I'll show you instant acceleration. I'll just here you go. Because it's so weird that a lot of people don't really understand that this exists. And it is a fundamental part of the game that is absolute insanity. So if I just go on Tracer, if I press A and D, that is instant, that turnaround. Instant, 1 frame. Every other game that there is, if you go on Lucio, for instance, you look how slow that turnaround is in comparison. Every other game has slow acceleration like that. It is a massive problem with Overwatch because they have to basically have incredibly good animations to show you exactly where the hitbox is going to be. And they have to have those animations blend between poses. So if you look at Tracer in third person, the Tracer leans over for the next like 5 frames after the momentum change. But you can only do so much to counteract that. And that was one of the reasons why Overwatch was such a hardcore, incredibly hard to get into game when it first came out. And I can only think this happened. Yeah, Lucio has different acceleration. I can only think this happened because Jeff doesn't know how to make a shooter. Like, that's the only thought I can have. At least, like, the team back then didn't know exactly what they were doing. Because this is just bizarre. You look at any game, you look at Quake, there's no instant acceleration. You look at any of the old games that he took inspiration from when he was making map editors, it's not that. So that was one of the main things, right? Instant acceleration was intentional to make your aim feel better. Yes, it was.
I will say for what it's worth. Sorry, can I comment?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I will say for what it's worth, over time, I've kind of just, as far as the projectile size increases and even the health pool changes went, I accepted it. I was like, fine, I not a fan of it, but I can understand why they did it.
Yes.
What I, like, progressively from Season 9, where I guess from here on out, the game went into the newer team's hand more and more. I just cared about consistency that, well, are they going to follow through with the things they are saying? I mean, like, where we are now, for example, I think it was you and Spilo who had a discussion recently about Freya. And the devs, I think, told Spilo that they said, well, Freya can't stand on her own 2 feet unless she can 2-tap targets in the game, right? It was you two, right, that I saw this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So my thing is like, okay. So let me get this straight. Like, as we went through season 9 and 11, one of the philosophies for DPS role was that we don't want like large burst of instant damage that can delete people, but it's okay on Freya. And then it's like, well, what about Widowmaker? She's one-shotting people in the head. Oh, well, yeah. Well, if we remove that, then she can't be a sniper. Okay, but we can try it with Hanzo, and then the character just completely dropped off the face of the earth, like he just didn't exist. And then they shamefully reverted everything on him and brought him back.
I think Freya's a little easier because they got 3 bolts, right? So if you have the 3 bolts, you don't necessarily need to crutch on the 2-shot as often. And Freya also has a follow-up body shot, so she can do a primary. So if you make it, if you make it like 240, I don't think that breaks the character. So I think you have a lot more avenues with Freya, right?
I think that's been my approach with her. Even though I've been maining her, I'm 75% winner on the character. I love her a lot. But I do think, like, hey, like, I don't know, why don't we try 110 for a little bit and see how it goes? And that totals to 240, right? If you land a headshot or something. I don't know the full maths off of my head, but I do know that my suggestion is, well, why don't you bring that breakpoint down to Dragonblade's level or even 120?
So double body shot is currently 260.
Yeah, 260, right. So let's bring that down to 120, and it's 240. Most of the characters in the game will live, and she can try it. Like, they can, I mean,
and one headshot guarantees the kill. Otherwise, you need to follow up with some other friend. But at least then you have a little bit of time to peel, right? Because the problem is, you don't have any time to heal up any of this damage. It's pretty much guaranteed because you only have that dip between the 2 bullets in order to actually get a heal in. If you make it so that you have those 2 bullets and you have a bit of extra damage, you have a little bit more prediction time in order to be able to peel it. And that's why stupid stuff like Life Weaver is being played at the moment, because they just allows them to be able to play around it.
Yeah, it's really funny to see how Life Weaver is being implemented right now.
Yeah.
It's cool to see how he is being fit into the game, but I don't necessarily agree that it is healthy. But regardless of all of that, then, like, on a flip note, like, Cassidy got his range back that really allows him to be able to stand his ground on the maps where he's much stronger now than where he was, let's say, 2 seasons ago. Hanzo's allowed the 1-shot yet again. I defend and I'm an apologist for this character, but it's like, well, okay, he got these breakpoints back. There's like a few handful of characters that don't have it, and one of them had been Reaper and Tracer that they nerfed because of 5v5. And I mean, everybody's reaction was just perfect. Their response to their statement to buffing Reaper and Tracer was, I mean, guys, just use map ban and hero bans. It's not that difficult, is it?
Yeah, the statement, the reaction to putting hero bans in the game was, well, we don't have to do it anymore. Fuck it, you do it.
That's what actually aggravates me. Is I don't understand how in any shape or form, I play a lot of competitive games and I've never genuinely seen a dev team pull out well, guys, look, we changed the format and it was oppressive and it was bad and it was this and that, but guess what? I think they need it. I'm bored and I need a reason to show my manager that I'm working today. Tracer's getting buffed, Reaper's getting buffed, fuck Genji's breakpoints.
They really said the quiet part out loud there, didn't they? Right? They really shouldn't have been so... But it's pretty obvious they're doing seasonal-based balancing, right? That's what they're trying to do. Last season was Fred, this season's Tracer.
Yeah, no, it's not just Tracer, it's Reaper too. So, like, I think that theory that people are trying to make viable, where they're like, yeah, they're buffing because of mythic weapons. I was like, okay, I think you guys are a little bit absurd. And then Reaper's mythic weapon comes out, and coincidentally, on that same patch...
I'd do it. If I was a developer, of course I'd do it. Why wouldn't you? You're doing seasonal-based balancing anyway. Why not make it a bit better so they can be viable during the season? Of course you'd do that if you're a developer.
Yeah, but then they just leave it. It's what they did with Widow when she got her buffs. They just kind of left it in the game. So my question now is, a 6 damage Tracer, also with the spread change she got, This is by the way, this is the strongest Tracer has ever been in her entire Overwatch life.
I think people didn't understand the hitbox increases with spread-based characters actually effectively or reduce their spread size by that hitbox change in order to be able to do damage, which is a percentage based. Yeah, so it basically squares the increase. So if you, for instance, had let's bring up Epic Pen. So if you had like a circle this size before, what you've essentially done is you reduce not only that size, but that size by the hitbox. So you've essentially like just reduced it by the square of the amount. So like if I say like it was that before and you reduce all hitboxes by that size, well, the actual radius there, the cross section, is massively small in comparison, right? You've actually changed it by a load. So all the spread characters got massively buffed by that. Took people a little bit while to realize, and now they just put Tracer back to her strongest number ever, and now she is obscene, just completely obscene.
I think I actually have this 2-minute clip where it's an overtime fight, and I'm literally 1v6ing in 6v6 by the way, 1v6ing the entire enemy team on that point 1 by 1 with the current state of Tracer. It is ridiculous what this character can do right now. And not just that, I've been saying it for past 2 seasons. I think people sleep on Reaper. I think he doesn't get enough credit. It's just the character's boring. You get bored of playing him. People don't want to pick him up. Like there's just better options. The other characters.
I quite enjoy Reaper myself. I do agree.
Yeah, same here.
I think he's just been out for so long in such a regular state that he's not really interesting anymore. I think if a Reaper type character was released today with like maybe like one extra mechanic, I think it'd be quite popular. But I think Reaper's just like been a mainstay for so long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's also very popular. Myself, yes.
So I've been trying to tell people for the past 2 seasons that guys, Reaper is really good. Please play him. If a noob like me can make him work in ranked, then so can you. Like he's very, very underrated. But that again, that brings me back to the whole, well, then what was the point of all these different changes if Tracer can have 6, Reaper's at 5.70 something, like Hanzo's got the headshot back, Cassidy has the range back that allows him to sometimes 2-tap, Freya's allowed to have 2 taps and this and that. Well, okay, I mean, then we can allow Mei to one-shot Tracer in the head, especially with how much of a threat Tracer is now.
It's obvious that their philosophy has changed, right? Their idea that we could reduce sharp damage in this game and therefore make it so that, for instance, Cassidy can't headshot you as easily didn't work, and they have reverted almost everything in that, apart from the things that they forgot to revert. And obviously, we can clown on them and say, well, you forgot this entire list of things when you originally changed it, and now you forgot an entire list when you changed it back. But I think the more worrying problem is the fact that they changed it in the first place, right? They had this kind of like idea, and they haven't acknowledged that they've already abandoned that idea, right?
I think just on that same note about like making the changes then reverting them, the biggest red flag for the current state of the game should just be Hanzo. I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough. They like tried the idea that what if we remove a sniper's ability to snipe, and what will happen with the character? Let's just see. And it's gone. So I mean, even people that want Widowmaker's headshot removed, that's just never gonna happen. It's just never gonna happen. Like, it's why I've kind of started to just shift my idea and the way I want this game to go forward now is if we're just gonna like somehow blanket buff things back to normal, quote unquote, then just commit to it. At least commit to something. Like instead of this whole.
I'll show you our rework Hanzo and Widow.
Sure, I am there. Yeah, I don't think I have you added though.
Realth hashtag 21610 21610 21610. I'll bring you in and show you real quick.
I got you. I think I added you.
Oh, where am I?
Do I just join game or?
Yeah, join up.
Okay.
So I don't know if you know about our code. This is FSJQS.
I know about it. I've just never actually had the opportunity to sit down and explore it. Just
wonderful. We do Pugs every Wednesday and Sunday. Spylo's joining us next Tuesday.
I mean, if we're all playing, we're gonna team captain this. I'm down. It'll be fun.
Minute to start. No, get him into Pugs.
So do you want me to pick Hanzo? Or
yeah, there's a spawn bot feature. Apparently, we've got to wait for the 40 seconds because it's our game. There's probably a way to skip this, but I am not good enough at anything.
It's alright, don't worry about it.
Almost there. You know, you can set the game to manual. Yeah, but it's like 30 seconds. So will that be a longer period of time than me working out how to set the game to manual? I don't think so, Didact. I think waiting this 19 seconds is probably the more effective one. You need to enable debug mode. It's okay. I'm just showing the Hanzo idea. So yeah, talking about that Hanzo and how like Blizzard changed him to be less sharp than more sharp again. I really think like half of this can be handled with Widow and Hanzo by a glint, right? Just basically a shining light on the end of their gun when they are full charged. Half of it can be handled like by that. And I'm coming to your spawn, so don't run all the way out necessarily. So this is our rework really? Hanzo. Where are you?
Okay, because I was already halfway there.
Where are you? Oh, you're getting back.
I'm by spawn door. Yeah.
I'm coming. So shoot me. Not in the head.
What, like, okay, like what, on the body?
Yep.
Okay, sure.
That's a mark.
Okay, I see the marker.
Okay.
Right.
The mark works round corners. The mark lasts for 6 seconds. So if you shoot me again during that mark, right, you get double damage. So if I shoot you one time, the next shot gets double damage. So basically, this is a way to preserve Hanzo's ability to be able to insta-kill without making it so that they can insta-kill headshot without something before it. But what we've done is we've made it so that this here, if I can actually aim, can also mark you. So you have this short fire, rapid fire on cooldown, just enabling you to kind of like flurry out a load of marks onto the enemy team, and then you can follow up on those marks with basically insta-kill bullets for the headshot. So you can still insta-kill people, but you got to do a little bit of work for it. So just like little things like that, those little concepts, right? You can work with a headshot. Scan does not mark. We thought that scanning would essentially invalidate the focus on the rapid fire. That's kind of like the idea. So the rapid fire doesn't get any damage boost from the mark, but the primary does. So like there's things you can do like this to keep the core of the character and insta kills in the game, but all you have to do is change the amount of telegraphing in the character to stop the frustration at the low ranks. So you can actually do a lot there. If you go to oh shit, I'm gonna have to change. Damn, I'm gonna have to change.
Lower the draw speed because I can feel it being faster than live.
I'm not 100% sure exactly where it is. Live did get buffed at a certain point. What's happening here?
Because I feel like that's something you would do to...
Oh,
it's okay.
I changed areas.
I feel like that... all good.
It's okay.
I feel like that's something you would do to at least make it feel a little bit more consistent, right? Like, give him a little bit faster draw speed so that it's easier, like, you know, easier for him to follow up on the mark.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, you can work around these kind of concepts. And with our Widow rework, what we've essentially done is we put a glint on Widow when they're scoped in, and when they're fully charged, we put a tracer out from Widow's gun in the direction they're aiming. So Widow's a lot more telegraphed where they are on the map, and you can do a load of work around this just to make them so much less frustrating and put power into the rest of their kit. But for some reason, like there's just none of this done. There's none of these like I don't see this experimentation necessarily, and it's really frustrating to me because sure, I can agree, a Hanzo standing down main that you didn't know was there, insta-killing you in the back line when you're playing in bronze is annoying and boring, right? I get it. 100%. I get it. Why? I get the idea from Blizzard, right? Being insta-killed by someone you didn't know because the game's so sharp makes you turn off the game. Yeah, sure. Season 9, justified just by that. But then we realize the game doesn't work if you do that, right? There's so many problems with sustain and so little ways to cut through it.
The feeling of satisfaction is just lost.
Yeah,
the feeling of satisfaction is lost.
Yeah, even not talking about the first person doing that perspective, right? Like the game just breaks apart the moment you reduce those type of things in the game. So like, it's one of those where I just feel like the devs team could just work with the concepts they have to make them better, or make them sidestep, right? There's a sidestep with half your design problems that works properly, and there's just no experimentation with them. They're just like, well, we can either remove the one shot or we can give you it, right? Hey, the game doesn't work when we remove it, so there's no other side grade. When there's loads of side grades like this you can do. It's just a really interesting kind of like thought.
I mean, at the very least, we could try it with the perk system. that's what I was expecting with perks, but they turned out to be just more and more different, like tiny passives rather than actual, perhaps like a flare up of existing kits.
Yeah. Do you know what I said
I
when
think
perks came
Reaper,
out? I said
yeah.
they should have increased the power of all ultimates by like 30% when perks came out. Just said, fuck it. Hands to the air. Just make the game awful for a little while so that loads of new players come in. But what they did is they made perks jazzy enough that they disrupted the game, but not impactful enough so that they're interesting, in my opinion.
Um, Sadly enough, at least some of the powers, even in Stadium, are kind of just like slightly more powerful perks than there are actually experiments on a different approach with the character. It's more so in DPS than it actually is in tank and support. But maybe the supports get a pass because the bias that's there. But I digress. But at least with the damage roll, like it was underwhelming. Like open up even like the newest one, Junkrat's page, and it's like 80% of the powers that are there are just a passive this, a passive that,
Yeah.
a small speed increase that. I mean, I thought Stadium was about reimagining these characters, but I guess supports, a select of them are allowed to be reimagined with their gameplay loop. But with DPS, it's like, yeah, Freya can shoot a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you with Stadium
It's
at the
sort of.
moment? Do you play it? Do you like it? Is it just like
Oh yeah,
something
I
they're
love
doing?
Stadium. I enjoy
It's
it a
interesting
lot.
because I don't touch it.
Yeah.
I at least try not to touch it because I think it's awful. All of the things I like about the game, I feel like I've taken out in Stadium. So what do you actually like about Stadium? Why do you play it? Because I for some reason, I try my best. I cannot empathize with people that like it.
Oh, that's fine. Look, first of all, I think it's important. Whenever I approach a different game or a mode, I try to. It's like I said, I try to look at what the devs want from that particular mode, and I try to hold them to that core value that okay, this is what this is supposed to be. When I go into it, the enjoyment and my focus should be to find this particular thing that they are trying to sell me. If that is not being sold to me, I feel like I've majored in marketing and business and all of that. So if I don't personally find that, I feel like that's unfun. I
Yeah,
feel like that's false
judging by the
marketing, false
goal of the
advertising.
developers,
Yeah,
not
like
what you
what it
actually find.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I unfortunately committed the cardinal sin of learning Legends at some point. And Stadium is a little bit of a mix of Overwatch meets League of Legends. But it's like you said, it has its problems, but and it is a little bit unfinished, quote unquote, or early access if you want to like meme on it, like Overwatch 2 did it for the first year and a half. But I think Stadium has potential to be its own thing, which is why I do enjoy it. But I particularly feel like what they marketed it as is this like reimagining of your characters, but then like a majority of the characters are just like 10,000 different versions of a passive. It's just passive. I'm so tired of passives. Just like, why is it that Kiriko can have 3 powers, 4, 5 powers that literally change her entire gameplay loop,
Okay.
but with like this or this character, it's only one or
So
two, and then it's like,
my
sure,
concern with Stadium, and why I don't really
yeah,
engage with it very much, or why I don't like it very much, is that essentially each different build is honing in on a specific part of the character's kit, right? So like the soldier auto fire / healing field, right? There's really only so many things you can do with a kit for the most part, and you do that by saying, I got this part, I'm gonna make it the whole kit. That's essentially what they do. So every single time you do a Stadium build, as you go throughout the game, what you're doing is you're reducing the amount of effective stuff in your kit over time, right? You got ability power versus weapon power. So if you
yeah.
build for ability power, your gun does nothing, right? And if you build for weapon power, you're taking a couple of abilities to make your weapon really strong in this like specific scenario, but the rest of your kit fall to the side. So every single time that you specialize in Stadium, I feel like you lose half of the interesting things in the game, which is the way that the kit fuses
Okay,
together and connects in my
I have
mind.
I have a really good response for this, but
Yeah,
would you just excuse me for 1 minute
of course, you're
and
fine.
I'll respond.
You're absolutely fine. I hope you can remember what I said. I wish the perk direction stuck to things like Zarya jump instead of just giving everyone literal steroids. Yeah, I feel like the standard perk problem is that I think the standard perk problem is that perks can't adapt and be power at the same time, and if they're an adaptation, it's very hard to make them have a reasonable choice. You made a event. What is the event? Pugs with Spylo? Is that your event? Pugs with Spylo. God, he's attractive. I don't even like Zarya or Sigma Jump because
Okay,
it removes
sorry
part of the
about that.
identity. Yeah, I think I agree. Hey,
Okay, sorry about that.
you're okay.
Okay, so I felt like where Overwatch was a little bit short-sighted when it came to this problem, because I fully agree, is the fact that we're not allowed to sell powers is the biggest flaw of that mode by far.
Hmm.
Because for example, in League of Legends, if you do lean into ability power, but like late game, a tank is so strong that you need to build attack damage or magic burn or whatever you want to go for, you can sell those full item sets, rebuild your character in the late game to then go and deal with that particular scenario. You can't do
Yeah,
that
I've heard this
in
opinion
Overwatch.
before that essentially you should
Yeah,
be able to, even if it's
yeah,
for like 80% of the
and
cost or
I
something
think
like
that
that.
I think it's a part of the whole chaotic appeal, because it's the problem I have, at least if I was to look at some problems in Stadium, I feel like it's a controlled experience, like a controlled chaotic experience, rather than, oh yeah, like just go crazy, like do whatever
Yeah.
you want.
If
And that's
every
what holds
single
it back.
character kit is going to be stupid and wacky anyway, what does it really
Yeah,
matter if halfway into a match
because
they change
for
their character
example,
kit, right? Like, we're not really
yeah,
predicting what they're doing anyway because it's stupid. So why don't we just, like, get balls to the wall, whatever, just change whatever? Yeah.
yeah, and for what it's worth, it's one of the worst feelings. Like as you're playing the game and you're building into one side of, let's say, like weapon power, and you realize, oh, like this other guy that I'm trying to counter build into. Well, it would be much better for me to counter build him if I could pick this power, this power, this power, and mix it with, let's say, ability power, because that has a better time against his build. And I feel like that also rewards knowledge and understanding of the game and the skill ceiling of
Yeah,
all of that
I
comes
guess
with it.
the question is,
And
what, do we develop a rock paper scissors picking meta based on it? I think you'd have to have some sort of diminishing returns in the amount you get back in order to stop that. But I don't see a
yeah,
problem with. I mean,
that's how it is.
Stadium's
That's how it is
meant to be
in
stupid and
League.
goofy and wacky, right? That's the
Yeah,
intention. So I don't see a problem with like leaning into that even more than they have. I think half-assing some of these things is quite a lot of the problem. Even if I say I won't enjoy it anyway, I think, you know what, if you're doing something, go for it. Why not?
on that same note, first of all, it's like you said, like the diminishing returns. Like if you sell a power item, you'll only get like maybe half its value to just control your pacing a little bit. Because at this point, the game is assuming that you're going to build into an advantage over
Yeah.
somebody else. So that advantage should be more than enough that you don't need the full build. You can take like 80, 60% of that build. That's one case, right? Another thing, and this is for all those PvE and lore lovers out there, is I feel like for Stadium, one of the things I suggested to Dylan was, I said it would be really cool if we could have a quote-unquote jungle mechanic in some small little boss fight on the side where they could literally just reuse those existing PvE assets, because we all know they're still there, and have like a little tug of war that happens over there. It leans into the whole Overwatch objective-based gameplay, and I mean it's worked out for every other MOBA.
Yeah,
And if this is the whole we're going silly,
it's a
like let's
weird
just
one. I can
reuse
only
those
assume that
assets.
they thought it was too much work to be worth putting in.
I mean, they're
Because
bringing consumables.
it very obviously fits into the game in a reasonable way. I guess the idea is, like, does Overwatch function in the same way if we make it so that the team fights aren't more or less 6v6 fights or 5v5 fights in Stadium, something. Like, does
Okay, but work with
Overwatch
me here.
function? Does hero-based shooters function if then they're 2v2 and
Wait,
then
wait, wait.
3v3 in the same way?
This is specifically for Stadium, like talking about the whole reusing the boss assets and everything like that. I'm only suggesting this because the idea of Stadium is that it's just supposed to be a completely chaotic and wacky.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, well, if we have this existing, like for example, like a lot of the powers that are there, we've seen them previewed before when they were showcasing some stuff way back when. So I'm just like, okay, like surely they have some like, you know, boss assets and all this laying around, and we know consumables are coming. So if you again want to lean into that Stadium fantasy, why not like, oh, like because one of the problems is there's a problem with catching up. If a team is completely outskilling you, you're screwed. And sometimes the game just doesn't want to make, like, first of all, there's no surrender feature,
It's
thumbs
a
up,
very
and then
swingy
secondly,
game. Very
yeah,
swingy.
and that little experience with that, like let's say a boss fight happens and it gives the other team a chance to catch up. Well, it's either like you can actually base strategies around this, because this is pretty much what happens in MOBAs. Is like, well, let them go for that boss. As the boss kind of messes with them and everything, we can sneak in, confirm some kills on them, get their bounty, get the boss, and now swing the game in our favor and be more incentivized to stay in it. Because another problem in that game mode is people just leave. There's no catch-up mechanics in that mode.
Yep.
And that's a point that leans into one of the Stadium's flaws.
It just
So, I
seems
mean,
like a
I've suggested all
MOBA
of this.
light when realistically
Yeah.
it makes so much more sense to just lean into the idea that it's a MOBA in general. or at least even a simplified MOBA with one lane and stuff on the sides kind of thing. It seems like the game would be improved by that style of being able to do stuff to things that aren't enemy players, because I think the reasons why MOBAs work so well is that MOBAs, you don't have to always be 100% on, right? There's a little bit of downtime where the bots are acting predictably and you're doing farming and other things like that. That I think is a lot of relaxation and kind of like I don't know, it improves the average experience and makes the peak experiences stand out by having some more or less downtime in terms of concentration in my mind that I think Stadium would really benefit from.
Yeah, but then they would have to take Stadium down the deadlock approach, which I don't think they want to do.
Yeah, that's true.
That would involve the whole, minions mechanic, because that's the one thing that's missing from it. Like, if we really want to lean into the MOBA thing, is first of all, there's no lanes, and number two, there's no minions. Like, we're just working with interacting with other players. So that's why I think like the softest version of that they could implement is just like this one little boss that pops up on the side, and you can go chase after it. It gives you a big bonus or whatever. And again, like the idea is that we're not really aiming for true balance here, but we're aiming for something that like delivers that experience of, see, you took this thing, it gives you this experience, and now you can go back and really fight back hard. Like, oh, Ryan just got a 30% attack speed buff because you killed that boss. So now you can actually duel out that Ursa that just refuses to die. I love Ursa in every I touch. She's such a fun character. I'm so happy we buffed her to relevancy. 5v5, 6v6, and Stadium. I'm so happy.
Do you know what the quitting point for me was from Stadium? I was standing in the middle of the point, just perfectly fine, right? I think I was even on the safe side of the point. I got a Rissa spun and then double boot by a Lucio, and I got pushed off the map from the opposite side of the point to the cliff. And I was like, well, that's enough of this, right? Yeah, I think I'm done with this experience, was the answer there. I think for me, the I don't know, the outlier experiences always stand out to me, and even when I'm doing the really good stuff myself, my build's working and online, and I'm doing stuff to enemies, I always think what terrible experience this must be for the enemy team, right? So it doesn't bring me as much joy as I think it should, right?
Oh, if you thought those experiences were bad, you've not played against Kiriko clone build. That thing is a work of art.
I have not played against Kiriko clone build.
That is the definition of Overwatch at its finest.
Yeah, but I guess the thing with Stadium is, like, you say Kiriko clone build, how many things can you realistically do with Kiriko as a character and specialize into parts of their kit and make that interesting, right? They got a TP, they got a Suzu, they got a gun, right? Like,
but that's exactly what I've been trying to say. The power should have been more transformative rather than just passive stacked onto one another. Yeah, that's my problem with Stadium.
At a certain point, aren't you just asking for Blizzard to be able to make more reworks for the character in interesting ways, right? Like, there's got to be a limit, and I guess they're already at their limit, so the answer is they don't have the resources to be able to do Stadium in a way that's interesting enough to keep me for the long term, I guess. Because, yeah, sure, you can make
now we're committing to it. That's the problem. Like, now we're here, we're committing to it. There's stuff coming in. I mean, they even said like some of the things from Stadium could go to the actual perks. Like, if they're healthy enough, they might throw them on over to the perks side. And I think in season 18, we are getting some things from Stadium coming to the live game. I think that much I remember.
Yeah. Do you know what? Let's talk about the real downside of Stadium. And it's not to do with anything in terms of actual Stadium. It's to do with Blizzard's complete and utter, I don't know, their demented desire to split their player base into 40 different categories, right? Like, we have Stadium, we have Comp 6v6, we have Unranked, we have Arcade, we have so many different game modes, and there's only like 30k active players most of the time. And realistically, there aren't enough players for 6v6 Comp Q to be good in the first place, right? I think that's the main complaint about 6v6 Comp Q in general. It's fine. But however, even if you do like the gameplay, and I think they've done some things to make the gameplay worse, once you get to like high diamond, you get long queues, or you're just being paired with the same people over and over. Blizzard really, I think they need to focus down on one or two game modes. It's hard.
It's not just that. There's been a bit of a back and forth about the matchmaking, because at first the matchmaking was loose. And they had done this so that it was easier to get into games. Yeah. Then people complained that, like, well, the match quality was horrible. Like, forget the builds, the match quality itself was horrible. Yeah. And then Aaron just came out yesterday and he was like, oh, by the way, we lose the match quality after tightening it because you guys can't find. luck again.
So
And
you're
it's
cutting out
just
again. You said you lose the match quality. So you said you loosened
okay,
the
that's
match
your final.
quality, yeah?
Yeah. So the first fix that they did to matchmaking was to tighten the spread between players, like in terms of the MMR. But literally just yesterday, Aaron made a tweet where he's like, "Yeah, by the way, like people weren't finding games, so we're loosening matchmaking again."
You can't have both. I don't think people understand this. If you split the player base into 5 or
Oh,
6 different equally sized categories, you can't have quick queue times and good quality. These things are literally give and take. They are mutually exclusive, right? You can have long queues and perfect quality, or you can have really bad quality and short queues. And you need. I think the simple fact is the devs need to delete some stuff. I'm sorry, there's just so much here, right? There's so much.
I
Like
think
you look
I
at
think
the
I
whole
think
of
arcade can
arcade,
be
right?
retired. Arcade can be retired. I'm sorry. Like I'll say it. I'm usually the quote unquote villain with the way I say things, and people take everything I say as an offense for some strange reason. So I'm like, okay, I'll say it. Arcade is useless. I barely has a player base. I actually used to really enjoy farming loot boxes in Overwatch 1 through Mystery Duel, like the one
Remove
we went
practice
in.
range.
And
Yeah,
and and
we'll get
and
flats
and
back into
and,
queues.
and I'll say it like there is like arcade has no purpose in the game. Nor is there any incentive to go play arcade anymore.
I
That
think
is the
I
most
think the
important one.
problem arcade made sense in a world where the workshop had support and workshop game modes were actually a reasonable thing that people could create, right? Like 20s, 18-ish Overwatch. Arcade made a load of sense. But now there's so many different game modes, and I feel like the audience needs to just be funneled into certain things.
Not even that. Something that would be interesting, which I don't understand how it's not done yet, is the arcade could be completely reworked into being the top five workshop game modes that rotates every 2 days, and that gives a spotlight to the people that are like actually working their asses off to get these unique, like even PVE and some like fun stuff like into the spotlight, and then every 2 days something new comes in. So anybody that opens up arcade for some strange reason, like they're actually gonna find a new experience in there that might incentivize them to go try it out instead of hitting the custom games button and then
Yeah.
scrolling.
Well,
Oh,
you
there's
know
that
why
game
they
mode I
don't do
like.
that, right? Is because like in 2022, Gary, the guy that did Workshop, got laid off, and they didn't leave code documentation, so anyone picking it up would have to spend weeks learning how to actually do
I
anything
didn't
in
know that. I'm
it, right?
sorry to hear that.
That's basically what happened, right?
Yeah.
Their code has always been spaghetti code from the beginning, and Workshop has ceased having support. Well, it does have a little bit of support, don't get me wrong. There's somebody that works on it occasionally in little bits, but it's ceased having consistent support for so long that I don't even know if anyone working at Blizzard right now would know easily. Obviously, they would work it out, but I don't think they'd know easily how to do something like that. It's just kind of like this this digital organ on the outside of Overwatch just hanging off there. That they're like, well, I'm not going to cut it off because I'll bleed for a bit, but I'm not happy that it's there, right? That's kind of like how they see the workshop in my mind, and maybe even arcade in general at the moment. I feel like, yeah,
At the very least, I would have liked it if they. One of my issues with the game is, first of all, its marketing desperately needs an upgrade. Number one, and number two, the incentives even for the casual player to play the game are so criminally low that sometimes I just feel like it's an insult even to the casual player to log in, and there's not like outside of these like painfully grinding loot boxes that you're not gonna get anything nice for a while anyway.
well, you're on about I've
There's
won
nothing
3 out of
to.
27 games. No. To be fair, like I don't know how in the loop you've been, but they have been reasonably good at giving away
No.
free
I'm
stuff
not saying
recently.
I'm not saying they've not taken initiatives to add in incentives,
Yeah.
but I do see a lot of posts like every now and then when there's a collab or something that the event that comes with the collab is just another keychain that nobody's gonna use or another spray that people don't necessarily care about or voice line. Like there was a point where at least they were giving away one free skin per what's it called collab. I know they only did it like once, and then yeah, they did it with the K-pop thing too with Junkrat, and then after that they were just like, yeah, whatever, like
Yeah.
no, like just take this spray, and it's these little things that I feel like even for the casual player it really hurts the experience because it's like there's nothing exciting for them to look forward to when they're sitting down to grind. It's like, well, it's either you enjoy the game and you just play for the sake of playing it. Or I mean, like if you really like this cool keychain that you're barely gonna look at for like 1% of your gameplay time, there's nothing else to kind of grind for. And
Yeah, I guess
also to be fair,
from my
yeah,
perspective, I don't spend money on any game in terms of this
I
stuff.
understand.
Like,
Yeah,
and I don't really care that much about cosmetics for the most part. Like, I already have more than enough cosmetics, so I'd never need one on Overwatch for the rest of time. So I'm not one of those people. So I don't really get the incentives as I'm getting free stuff. But in my
the
opinion,
only reason.
I think Overwatch has been good in terms of like its relation to other games. I think Overwatch gives away more stuff and gives more incentives for like regular play than Rivals does, for instance. The only thing that
No, I would
I think
respectfully
the only
disagree.
thing I think Overwatch is missing out on is rewards for playing. Right? They give away rewards for playing the video game, but they don't give away rewards for placing in a season or really make you feel like, oh, I'm gonna play some comp because I want to get up to the next rank. There's no prestige rewards, which I think is really sad because if there's something that Blizzard always did well in things like World of Warcraft, it's make you look at other people and be like, oh, that's cool. I'll play the game to get that, right?
Yeah, I know. As far as Rivals goes, and season 2 is the current one that we've had. They've thrown a crap ton of free actual like skin cosmetics that are even unique, not just recolors. So for the life of me, like, again, I'm not doing this on, oh, I hate Overwatch and I love Rivals. I give the games the credit where it's due, and I think at the moment I'm the only one that's playing both, like,
Yeah,
side
no,
by
I'll
side.
cop to being out of the
Yeah.
loop for Rivals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. So I think at least as of now, I think Rivals is a lot more generous when it comes to constantly giving away free rewards. I'm not saying Overwatch doesn't do a good job at it. I like that loot boxes came back. I like that they changed it up and this and that. But I think, like, for example, like this event right now, G.I. Joe collab, not a lot of big fans for G.I. Joe, but even in
It's
this
a
little
bit of a weird
event
one,
tab,
right?
yeah, yeah, this little event tab, they like there's no like, oh, if you play 10 games, you'll get one loot box. Even that is at least a loot box, like, fanatics will go crazy.
Actually,
Oh my
it's
god, 10
9.
games. You know what I mean? Like there's just little tiny things that I feel like, if we can just like increase this, like, even if it's not a direct skin, at least the illusion of, oh, you might get something is enough for. I mean, it works on me, so I'm not gonna shy away. Like every time I see, oh, a free loot box to earn, you bet I'm locking in to grind out some games. But I feel like they could do that a little bit better. I think that's something the game could use, and I think perhaps.
I think Deft is probably right here. There's complete erasure of accessible lore-based content like cinematics or interesting hero origin stories.
Oh, I have a video coming up ranting about that. I am so excited to do that. I'm very much into Overwatch's lore, and my favorite gaslighting experience that I've been through way back when I wasn't a content creator was being told by the bigger content creators, I love all of them to death, but being told that Overwatch has the best lore out there, and then I actually studied other video game lores, and I realized, nah, Overwatch doesn't really do anything with its
We're
lore.
still at the same point we were 9
There's
years
nothing.
ago.
I don't, again,
Still at
if I have to
recall.
be,
Okay, it did change in
yeah,
Overwatch 2
no.
PvE missions a little bit, but we're like 2
Okay, you
weeks
know what?
after recall in terms of the
No,
the
You know
timeline.
what, Ralph? You are wrong. You are wrong because
Sorry,
Kiriko is not that mean in her voice lines anymore, okay?
that's
I
true.
take that
You
back.
should see
There's
my
been
bike.
progression. Kiriko is not that mean anymore, guys. There's been character progression. Take
Yeah.
that back. Hanzo's not that depressed anymore,
Yeah, Overwatch has
okay?
been edging its lore for 7 years. Yeah,
My God, bro. Uh, like, I
literally.
want
Oh,
there's so much they could do even without the whole grand scheme of PvE and all of
yeah.
this. And the worst part is because they're not progressing the main characters, it like edges you from the perspective that, oh, surely there's still something that will come, right? Because why else are we not following the main characters of the story? It's called Overwatch, right? Not find out what Zenyatta is up to in his garden or something,
It would be
right?
so easy to
I
just have
just
the
don't
voice line
understand.
interactions tell a story. Just like the rare voice line interaction between heroes. It'd be so easy to do that. And like it'd be so good for lore hunters, right? Lore hunters love this kind of shit. These rare interactions that
I am
tell
a lore
something,
hunter.
right? But
I know a couple of people from our community.
yeah.
Big shout outs to Shroomy. I don't know if you know who they are. He's a great, he's contributed a lot to the lore community on the Overwatch side. Amazing guy. Works very, very hard at this. And I've had a couple of conversations with them on the state of lore and everything. But like even I'm not trying to bring up like a little like a shipping debate or something like that. They can't even commit to that. And I just like, it's what frustrates me is like, can this game progress in any meaningful way that isn't, oh, by the way, we're in 5v5 now. We lost one time. Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Can they
And our
progress
core
not
philosophy was,
backwards?
yeah, by removing one thing at a time. Oh god, I love this game, but god, it's painful sometimes. Like
Yeah, and it's not like
my
I want a crazy amount in terms
yeah.
of lore and stuff like that, but it's so sad, like looking back at the Overwatch 2 quote-unquote launch cinematic, the one that they showed to announce it, the announcement. Oh, it's so crazy, and it's so obvious there that they were teasing team-ups with Ryan and Brick's shield interlocking, and then Tracer with the pulse bomb and stuff like that. It's so obvious they were teasing stuff that they intended to do, that maybe would have happened in Engine if they were able to do it, but it was obvious that it was at least 5 years out when
think you
Overwatch 2
can, yeah,
launched.
I still think you can pull that stuff off. I still think you can, even if they don't want to tell the main story, at least with the main characters, I think you can find a way to quote unquote pause the main story and using your iconic and the most popular characters, even if it has to be like Mercy, Kiri, Genji, Reaper, Soldier, Ryan, Winston, you can still tell like self-contained stories that take your most popular characters and keep them in the limelight so people keep up with the Overwatch. Because I mean, obviously there's golden gooses in each role. My problem is that they're not even outside of skins. When it comes to the lore content, they refuse to milk any of the golden gooses at the moment when it comes to the lore because they're all just stuck in the where the story ended before.
Yeah.
All of them, like they're just stuck there and they refuse to use them.
I'm also a bit concerned about Overwatch resorting to
Mobile.
slop, to say the least.
Oh, okay. Is
With
this Overwatch Mobile? Because it's coming, by the way.
I don't know if it's been cancelled. Right, so Microsoft is
Oh,
laying off a
yeah.
shitload of people at the
recent,
moment.
Right.
Obviously, it was on the way at some point, and it hasn't been mentioned in any way, shape, or form in like a year and a half to 2 years. It seemed that when it was last mentioned, it was pretty far along and guaranteed to come out then. But we've had nothing since. And the question, you know what? If they give me Overwatch Gacha game, I don't even care. You know what? Just give me Overwatch Gacha. It doesn't affect the game in any way, in my opinion. In fact, knowing the quality of Gacha at the moment, it'll probably increase it. What I'd hate is for them to make it something that pretends to be a game but isn't, if you get what I mean.
No, I fully understand. I think taking the IP and doing something different with it, also from a marketing perspective, would actually be just perfect. You introduce it to a completely different audience. You can still use it to tell story. Like for example, all the allegations about the game aside, I do play a little bit of Zendis on the side. And like the little, like, whatever the Gooner stuff and everything, I don't give a shit about that. I liked what I saw in the cinematics and the story that it told. And the one thing that the game doesn't wall me off of is I can sit there and come back every like month or so, experience the story progression and all the interesting lore, and then log off and still come back to at least, at the very least, experience the story, even if I'm not try harding like the dungeons and all that shit.
Yeah.
So like I will at least say that from the little gacha games I played, they are kind of like, oh, at the very least we can allow you to enjoy the story and the lore.
Yeah,
so
I guess Overwatch can't make a gacha game
yeah.
because they have to produce something.
I didn't say shit. All right.
I remember.
People
Right,
say I see. I've not flamed Blizzard once. I don't want to hear.
I remember seeing at some point somebody from the story team got laid off, and I was like, everyone was like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "Okay, what have they done for the last time 5 years?" I was like, well, "Of course they got laid off. They haven't got any story. Like, what are you doing?"
There was also the I don't know exactly who we're referring to. I don't want to take names out of good faith. But there was like some little like mess of allegations and accusations of favoritism towards a certain ship and wanting to erase a previous writer's work, and this little drama happened, and there's also a bit of politics in there
don't know
because
about
of
this.
certain. I
should
know a
look
lot
into
about
drama
this,
more often.
unfortunately, but it is a very unexplored little drama in the Overwatch scene. I did see both points of view of where people were coming from. It was a little bit, from an outside-in perspective, it was a little bit ugly. I doubt he got laid off for that, by the way. I'm just certain it was a Microsoft moment. But I think it's like even when you have like moments like that, it just, again, it's like we're back at square one. Like none of the characters have progressed, none of the relationships have bloomed into anything.
Yeah.
Even like one of the things I really liked about Marvel Rivals is, man, they had the sack to shove Reed and Sue in your face and say, please, this is our couple, you will like it, and you're forced to like it, and we don't care if you don't like it. It's what our writers like. I mean, they're already married, but like then they have characters on the side that they're pushing slowly, and it's like at least they're doing something. League of Legends, they've done something.
Yeah.
Even fucking Valorant has done something.
I
and I'm just
I can't even access the comics through the game. Like, where are all the comics they've done for Overwatch? Why do I have to look on a website? Like, what's happening?
I don't
We don't
want
always
to
work.
flame. Yeah, I don't want to flame because I know right now they're going through a tough time with the layoffs and everything. But
Of course.
how is it that like the newer characters all have their animated shorts and everything linked in place, but some of the older characters like at some points it is there and then some points it's not there. Like Junkrat doesn't have the Junkertown cinematic
There's so much
on his
structural
little
work that just
gallery.
is not done
Yeah,
behind the scenes, right? Even trying to find the comics on the website, like you try and
yeah,
find
yeah,
all
yeah,
of
yeah.
these and collate them. You have to do it yourself, right? They're all in different places. They're all in random like areas. It's actually quite hard. Apart from the new ones, obviously in the last couple of years, they're in order. But the rest of them from a while ago, they're just in the ether on random sites, and you're like, what? Can we just organize these into a place? I need a place for lore, right? It's not that
Not necessarily
complicated.
that.
Get a
I
guide,
think
please.
exactly.
It's very hard to argue the
Actually,
value, I guess.
another issue is that at the moment, like trying to get anybody into Overwatch lore is so difficult because not just the accessibility problems that you mentioned, but also there is no chronologic like a proper structure to bring people in and slowly, progressively take them through like the journey of Overwatch.
Yeah.
It's very much a lot of self-contained stories, and this like one story that we were supposed to progress through has been halted. Anyways, don't you want to know what Soldier's doing with the
Yeah.
do, right? Like
Yeah.
Soldier, like, and it's just kind of like awkward, like sidetracking, and people don't have an interest in like certain characters. I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day. But I don't know. It's just like
There's
I,
no
I would like to see this
acknowledgement and
better.
respect to the amount of value that work brings to Overwatch as a product.
Oh, easily, easily,
It's just insane to
easily.
me. It's insane that they don't, because you got all the work done. You just need somebody to get it all in one place, get it accessible in the game, and sure, that doesn't bring anyone into the video game. Sure, you're getting layoffs. I know why it hasn't happened, but also it's such a value loss to not do it. And like you're making new stuff still. Why are you making new stuff instead of just making the old stuff actually available to people that aren't already diehard in the Wolf fans? It's just insane to me. Crazy.
And one more thing on that same note is like if we try to look at it from, well, who are the most popular characters, like outside of Kiriko, like they're not really utilizing their star, like their superstars, like in the roster as much as they could, because at the end of the day you'll still generate some form of interest, and it could lead into a long-term like payoff. I mean, like Arcane had to start somewhere, right? With
Yeah.
League of Legends, and that was a lot of different books and passages that they organized on their websites that
Yeah.
people slowly got into. It led to a big community, and they took a big risk, and they were like, okay, surely this thing will work out. And they soft restarted their lore with Arcane, and that turned out to be a global
Yeah.
success. And now every game or like what's it called? Even Rivals is doing these little animated
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Rivals has a lot of
Rivals.
outside of content that they're
Yeah,
creating
yeah,
just for
they
Rivals.
yeah, and not just that, they actually tell their story in the game itself. Like the gallery cards that you collect from the battle pass, they're telling you what's happening in real time in the lore as you progress each season, and by the end of a season, it turns into a
Yeah,
comic.
that's really cool as well. Like that's really good
It's
stuff.
that's insane. It's like it's actually
It's
crazy that
bang on
they
brand
figured
for
that
what
out.
they're attempting in terms of rival
Of course,
Marvel as
yeah,
well. Like it's
as a comic
perfect and
ID,
it's
yeah,
perfectly in.
yeah.
I think my question is, does Overwatch have the resources to do this anymore? Can they do this? They seem to me like a much more efficient but leaner team than they were before, whereas previously the old Blizzard style was to put an infinite amount of people for an infinite amount of time on a project, and eventually they'll make a load of really cool stuff and knit it into a game. Now it seems like they're doing specific stuff, and the outside, like the extra 20% of innovation might be being done slightly less in terms of this side of stuff. Not in terms of gameplay, obviously they're still making gameplay systems, but it might be that the extra 20%, because those are the people that get cut, right? Like those are the people that aren't necessary for the game to keep on for the next like 3 months. So that's just inevitably what's always going to happen when you have a corporate takeover.
Can I
So
rage bait?
yeah.
I mean, they can't even do a patch dedicated to 6v6 in the live game. Do you expect me to like them to figure out how to use resources to figure out the
Crazy, isn't
lore?
it?
And
Crazy,
okay,
isn't
okay,
it?
that was me having a little tease. But on a more serious note, I think the problem with Overwatch has always been this approach where it's less one focused direction and more let's try to spread everything out and make everyone happy. Like we'll do a little bit, like for example, just like this example, the hero gallery. Like Junker Queen has her animated short in her hero gallery preview, but Genji and Hanzo don't have dragons, and the list goes from there. Then on one end you also have, sorry,
Where is it?
oh wow, never mind, they removed it.
I was looking at Bastion earlier, and I was like, surely he's in there.
No.
I remember them being on here, right?
Yes, they were here. They're gone. Juno has hers.
Malgazon.
Juno has hers.
Yeah, it's basically looks like it's since
Kiriko has hers.
launch.
Yeah.
Wait, or
No,
maybe it's just a bit.
I remember Queen's being there.
Oh, maybe it's just rare. Maybe just like some have it.
No, Juno has hers. Kiriko has hers.
Sojourn? That's a good one. Since Sojourn was basically the reason why we don't have it. Sojourn has hers.
Sojourn has hers. Genji doesn't have his. Hanzo doesn't have his.
It's pretty obvious why they don't want to make these anymore, though. Like, from my perspective, right? Sojourn got, like, almost 1 million views. I'm like, that must have cost $200,000 just for those 1 million views. It's not realistically cost effective.
To be fair, okay, I don't want to say it's not, or it is cost effective or whatever. Again, I don't want anyone to misinterpret.
Oh, you're gone. He's dead. He's come back.
Okay, I think Discord was like, be quiet, don't say it. But I think one of the problems with what they did with the Sojourn short was that, and perhaps sometimes even with the lore direction in these like short stories that they do, they're not trying to create like memorable events. Rather, they're trying to tell you of a memorable event that you're supposed to take seriously. And it's harder to get invested into something where you're being told that, oh, you're supposed to like this thing, by the way, because it's important. It happened once upon a time, rather than, let's make a once upon a time happen. Right? Yeah. Like, what are the most popular shorts? The Reinhardt one, the Genji Hanzo one, the, surprisingly, the Heroes of the Storm
Sigma's
ones.
Intro story is like the most bone-chilling thing I've seen still. I'm going to pop the loop real quick, one sec. You can entertain chat while I'm gone.
But if I ask you, okay, if I ask everybody in chat, like, why were these so memorable? It's because for you in that moment, they were focused on creating once upon a time, this happened, this is something you're going to remember, because you're going to be a part of the experience. A lot of what Overwatch's direction now, and how they try to portray stories or characters has more to do with, well, stuff has already happened. Let's have a reactionary short story. Let's have a reactionary... no, I'm not saying this happens all the time, but like majority of the cases, it's why a lot of people nowadays are not interested in the lore. Because a lot of it is just, reactionary of well, you can enjoy this short and you can be a part of this like changing event and follow through with it, rather than, yeah, this one thing happened, look at this character react to it. That's one of the reasons, in my opinion, like the Sojourn short didn't perform as well. Guys, I'm probably using the wrong word. Please excuse me. I'm probably using the wrong word. But my point is like they're trying to tell you these cool things have happened. You're supposed to see people react to it rather than create new cool hype moments. Wait, I don't know reactionary. I don't know what that means. I think he went to the washroom.
Where did Wealth go? Hello.
Oh, hey, welcome back. Yeah, I'm scared. Your community is scaring me. I don't know how to handle it. I'm kidding. But yeah, like I feel like perhaps I'm not wording this properly, but it's like whenever, like, for example, whenever like after Arcane ended and the little shorts that have come out for League of Legends, each of them has like a little purpose of progressing the story. When Overwatch gives you a little hard work and effort worth of a short or something now, it's just marketing material for the next skin. Which I'm not saying they're not allowed to do, but it's like, can we also do this for that one other thing so that perhaps people can be emotionally invested in these characters again?
Yeah. It's... I don't know what's happening internally for Overwatch, so it's hard to tell whether we'll ever get this style of stuff. At the very least, we know that Blizzard's cinematic team is not working on Overwatch anymore. I think that's pretty obvious that it's all being outsourced. Nothing is happening for this game. If anything really is happening at all, apart from like maybe 1 or 2 cinematic, something that's coming up as a release cinematic. So the era of Blizzard, the era of the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic is gone and dead, quite obviously. It's just going to be interesting to see how they can adapt into something that's more lightweight in the future. I guess, and whether they can use the stuff they've already made that is of a shitload of value to people in a reasonable way.
Have you seen the Junkrat Roadhog Junkertown cinematic that came out way back when?
Junkrat Roadhog.
Like the SFM style, like they were promoting the map.
Yeah, it was a weird one,
I
wasn't
would,
it?
sure, it was like funny and promoting the new map and the characters, but I would rather they just lean into that. Even that would be amazing for us.
I've probably got it saved somewhere, actually. I think I've got it saved on my computer. One sec. Is it here? Is it here?
The plan, yeah. Chat remembers it. The plan.
The plan. I think I had the plan saved somewhere for the Roadhog video I made, but no, I can't find it. I was gonna put it on in the background. Yeah. I guess only thing left to really say is to talk about tank in Overwatch. I think that's the topic we got.
I'm about to become public enemy #1.
Yeah. Go on then.
Across the entirety of gaming, and I can say this with the utmost confidence because I've played tank and I've also seen and coached tank players across all these games. I think by far the worst player base in gaming has to be the tank players. They fundamentally misunderstand their role. They don't ever incentivize themselves to actually learn how to generate value on that role. And across different spaces in gaming, at a certain period of time, every role that was tank got turned into big bruiser that can also do everything. And then immediately, 2 to 3 weeks in those other games, they would get reverted back to actually being proper tanks. And unfortunately, I don't know if that's a psychological thing of like when people go on to the tank role, do they feel this sense of... I'm not saying everybody's like that, so chat, calm down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a lot of people in the casual community that think they're God's gift to gaming when they lock up Reinhardt on Watchpoint Gibraltar and they're gonna run it down on mid and they have this like sense of entitlement that they're supposed to do everything that they want.
Worse than skill or personality, Nif. I think he said skill, but personality for you specifically.
But
I think the problem is tank is always going to be more demanding because tank needs more reading of the gameplay flow in order to be able to do its job, right? So it's always going to be more demanding in general. And from my perspective, the way that you get a tank community, and it's very easy to get a tank community, is to make the things that tanks do, cleaving into the enemy team, taking resources from your team in order to do interesting things into the enemy team, fun, and to have a stable video game so that you can continuously kind of like evolve that player base over time. And the lack of stability in Overwatch, in my opinion, has turned off so many tank players to a ludicrous degree. I mean, I played a game of 5v5 last night. I went Junker Queen, they went Winston, they immediately swapped to Zarya. Okay, well, I guess won't play the video game anymore. I'll fucking throw my knife at you and your bubble, or axe in your bubble, and I just won't play. Yay, I'm enjoying myself. There's nothing, even with perks, right? Every single change they've made has been, in a way, designed to stop the tank experience being fucking terrible since 5v5 was released. Every single change is to
at the expense of everybody else feeling like ass when it comes to interacting with them. That should also be mentioned at the very huge expense of 4 other, assuming 5v5 is the core mode.
Yep.
At the expense of everybody else feeling like ass when it comes to interacting with them. Look, the role is designed to be interacted with, whether you like it or not, across any game you play. And it will be interactive with the first because, oh, big target, easy to shoot, therefore brain thinks, go for this first. It's going to happen any game you play. If you go play the tank role in League of Legends, it's going to happen there when you take team fights. If you go play Marvel Rivals, like when you're swinging in with Venom or you're flying in with Doctor Strange, people will look at you first whether you like it or not. And your expectation when you're picking those characters should thrive upon, yeah, you better look at me and I'm about to make your life a living hell because it's going to allow my team to do everything else. And if your team doesn't do everything else, it is what it is. It's not your fault. But a lot of tank players, like, they fall into this trap that, well, tank is just big DPS that can shield people, and after that
it is big DPS in Overwatch now. That's just
now it is,
right?
Because
in order to transition to 5v5, they made them much more single target focused and much more able to hit breakpoints and kill individual DPS players, right? Because if they can't kill individual DPS players, they can't move anyone out of angles because there's one person in that angle to be able to move. Before they got their pressure by putting pressure on 2 people or 4 people with an AoE cleave, and now it's I'm gonna hazard leap across the map at you and insta kill you with a slash left click combo and put a rock behind you, right? Like it's that amount of sharp pressure from them, and I think it's just horribly unhealthy in general. My problem with Overwatch tanking, I think all of the changes they've made is in a straight line from 5v5 towards where we are now, right? So
of course.
You go to 5v5, it's obvious that the tank's going to be hated on more. It's always going to happen. And also you have a problem with sustainability, because if the tank can go infinite and do whatever they want, you necessarily need to counter the tank in terms of stopping their healing coming in, or CCing them when the healing does come in, they go infinite, to stop them walking all over you. So people naturally stop countering the tank, and then we get to the point where the tank's HP and the tank's individual target lethality has to rise. And then every step down the line is just a straight line.
It's not just that. I feel like one more thing that doesn't get talked about enough with the current state of tank and post Kaiju, which that's what I call that season, since we had Kaijus in it, and now the tanks have become the Kaijus of the game, is one of the worst feelings in the world is interacting with them and realizing you just cannot move their HP bar unless there's a little bit more help coming your way. So when there is sometimes a duel that is happening in between a tank DPS or in the worst case a support dueling a tank, man, as a support you just feel helpless.
Double
because you don't
shield
have the
by any
DPS
other
passive.
name smells of sweet.
You don't have anything going for you. Yeah, like as a support, taking a duel against a tank in current Overwatch is, in my opinion, the worst experience I've ever had in a video game. Because you don't have the DPS passive. If he's being healed, if he has a support with him coming after you, what are you what are you supposed to do?
Yeah,
genuinely,
it's really interesting to me, all the arguments against 6v6. Like, people will talk about the sharpness of pressure, and like there's more access to space in 5v5, which is pretty obvious, and I understand DPS players liking the more access to space without having to fight a tank in order to get that space. But if the tank does challenge you for that space, you lose, right? Like, before, you had a more or less even fight.
Can I expand on that?
Of course you can.
I get so annoyed these days when people pull that argument out, because I'd actually argue that you don't have the space in 5v5 anymore to take the angles at you, because not only are supports just 10 times better duelists nowadays, but if the tank decides to turn around and come after you and you're committing to that backline, you are now sandwiched between three people that insta-delete you, and your playstyle that once thrived is now considered a throw playstyle.
Yes, tanks now control space in a much sharper way. They will duel and insta-kill you in that space instead of trading for resources in that space, in my opinion.
It's one of the reasons why now Tracer can take those more aggressive duels and commit to a backline. It's because she just has the raw power to delete somebody before an interaction between the tank and support can happen towards her. And it's why I've argued for breakpoints for so long, where I'm like, well, if we're going to allow all of this, then at least give the damage roll the actual damage needed to create the pressure that they're supposed to bring. Otherwise, like when I was climbing, because I made one last Hail Mary for top 500, and when I was in the process of climbing, I realized the best way to play 5v5 is to just, one of the best ways to play 5v5 was to just wait for your tank to make a play, and if you try to do anything by yourself, which is what they promoted 5v5 with, by the way. When 5v5 initially came out, the idea was that more independent plays, more DPS get to have an impact, and nowadays there's none of that. And you know what there is to help DPS make an impact? A passive.
I think this one was an interesting Season 9 change, wasn't it? I don't think this is necessarily inherent to 5v5, so like the ability to be independent and do things on your own. I don't think it necessarily was just inherent to 5v5, but I think it's the bigger health pools mean you're more inclined to do things in a big burst, and I've been harping on about this for ages and nobody really seems to understand me. If you have a bigger health pool and you can do more in a big burst, but once that stuff is gone, you don't do anything, or you can't get the stuff back because of the DPS passive, meaning you can't get your health back, then you're inclined to just wait until the optimal time to do anything, which means when the tank is doing something, you can't be continuously active in the same way you were before.
On that same note, with the tank and what they their philosophy, like my problem is that it actually plays into how Overwatch has balanced the game. It's like, let's try to make everybody happy, where now the tanks actually get to live out that like fantasy that they want, which is, well, I just get to run over any game that I want and nobody's allowed to contest me, nobody can do anything. I mean, what else reason is there for Wrecking Ball and Doomfist to be banned all the time? It's because if they're not banned and well, Sombra is always banned, then they're literally just running amok across 90% of the lobbies in quick play and ranked. and people just cannot interact with it because the characters are just obnoxious to play against. And if the kit wasn't annoying enough, they have the health pools to just stay alive against most scenarios and cases where they'll still have an impact on the match. And that's even before you factor in that, oh, they might have a good Tracer and a good Genji and a good Sombra and this. Like, that's way before the DPS and the supports come in. The problem just inherently starts in the tank role that, well, this guy can do all of this. God forbid if somebody else that's better on a role comes with him. And then you're just helpless.
The other thing is, like, because the tanks are more condensed, right? Quite a lot of the cooldowns that tanks used, instead of when you had, like, some of the things in the Zarya, some of the things in Reinhardt, the Zarya would bubble the Reinhardt aggressively, and the Reinhardt would swing in. Very simple interaction. Nowadays, if the Zarya has 2 bubbles, they're not inclined to use a bubble aggressively. They're inclined to save the bubble until something aggressive happens into them, and then use the bubble to peel for themselves, because otherwise they blow up.
The entire flow of 5v5 has become more about punishing plays happening rather than making plays happen. That's my opinion on it.
I played a game yesterday where the enemy tank was on Ram. Do you know what they did? Every single time I did anything, they just turned into form and started blocking.
And that perk and the worst part is that the better perks for tanks as well just lean into forcing them to sustain themselves.
What, Vortex and Big Shield Ram? The most entertaining thing ever.
Yeah. Because the tank player just feels safe that he'll get away with doing these things, but is the experience? You know what the worst part is? Ramatra is such a fun tank, and then the best playstyle on him is like the worst thing you could have asked for.
At least I got Spilo to agree on this. I think it's a massive win for all of us that Spilo agreed that longer cooldowns and more powerful cooldowns are bad for the game. Like, that was a massive win. And the fact that 6v6 had like 2 seconds put on every single cooldown means the game fucking AFKs is pretty obvious, and everyone should be able to tell it. But for some reason we've been like just sitting and living with it, with nobody pressing any buttons for no reason in particular. Like, it's just hard. It's hard.
Try to play against Hazard in 6v6, it's awful.
Because he's still sharp, right? He's still just as sharp as he is in 5v5, because he's a single target tank.
Lethal. He's very lethal against other tanks and squishies and everybody else. But the best part is if you try to contest him or whatever, he's so good at negating damage with the block and then bringing a wall up and then cycling around another tank and playing around them that the guy just doesn't die. And a lot of people don't know this, but like the higher up you go, 6v6, Hazard becomes such a freaking problem that it makes you want to rip your hair out.
And Doomfist.
And I don't hate
one of those, right?
I mean, Doom is just one of those that, I mean, Doom, Ball, Hazard, like, what do all of them have in common? Tanks that can make plays by themselves, now pair them with another tank that can make play by themselves, and like that's where we went away from like Ryan.
At least Ball isn't a single target. That's the only thing Ball has going for him. But Doomfist can just insta-kill any DPS on any duel. Like, that's just his default. And 7HSAW took out so much power from Doomfist, and then we get into 6v6, and the devs don't, despite the fact that I'm gonna say behind the scenes, I think Spilo prompted them to. But like, it's just crazy, right?
I think also if you look at the gameplay style of tanks from back in the day when, of course, we made up main tanking and off tanking. That's like, it's not something the devs ever intended for. It's just something that incidentally happened, right? Like, and I'm sure
it's a type of thing you can do, right?
I'm not. But that's the beauty of people educating themselves on the game and figuring these things out, right?
It always was there. It always was in the design space. We discovered it. It wasn't that we made it up, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can agree with that. And the thing is like, at least back in those cases when we had like these things happen, it always felt like the tanks had a trade-off. Like, I mean, even just the design space of Reinhardt, if he has to damage something, he's sacrificing his sustainability in order to stay alive during a fight, and he puts himself at risk. Zarya, if she bubbled another tank and that didn't work out in her favor, her overall impact in the fight is much lower than what she can do in 5v5. She controls her entire impact now by herself, and she can just like, why is she the most banned tank? Any tank that's like banned
nobody wants to play into that shit.
But like, if you try to understand the psychology of why people don't want to play against it, is tanks that can control their own experiences without having to worry too much about interacting with their teammates. It's like, I indirectly benefit you because I'm fat DPS. It's like, we looked at Roadhog and said, no, let's make more of this and less of the interesting designs like Winston, Diva, Ryan, Zarya, etc. I'm not saying they're perfect, and I don't think you can ever have a perfect game and even perfect designed heroes. But I think you can at least create a strength, a weakness, and trade-offs in terms of engagement. And I think that's where gaming, like as an art form, excels, when you have that. And when you progressively remove that from your game, you just lean into one thing more and more per season, and that's frustration.
Yep, 100%. The game's become so much more passive, so much more frustrating due to the bigger health and the DPS passive, 5v5, and all of the changes they've made. And even in the 6v6 mode, they've made it so much more passive because they've increased the cooldowns. And now I'm here,
It's still
like,
better than 5v5 though.
yeah, I agree. It's still better than 5v5 because at least there is some interesting resource
it's
trading.
a half-assed experience, but it's much better than 5v5.
Yeah, it's just very hard to, I don't know, engage with the game properly and want to grind the game. Where first off, the entire game's split into 15 fucking queues, so the player base is incredibly small. So why does it even matter if I'm good at 6v6? I'm going to be playing against fucking masters. I'm sorry, if I'm in GM, I'm going to be playing against diamond players anyway. So why does it matter if I rank up? And then the actual experience is so obviously made worse for no reason in particular, right? These are philosophy problems to do with the game and the way that the game flows. That still, after 10 years, the average Blizzard employee seems to not understand the design landscape of the game. They've had infinite access to coaches of the game, people that know about the game. They've been fucking in Spylo's stream every other day. And how can they not get that to filter down? They could have 100% flew Spylo out to LA and said, can you just give us a seminar, right? About what different things do, right? They have access to these people. They would have done it for free as long as they got a hotel, 100%, right? They would have 100% done that. But they have all the experts and they don't use them, which is just very frustrating.
I also believe one of the flaws with the way they approach the game is what hurts sometimes is they always indirectly try to communicate that we know better for the game than what you think is better for the game. It's like there's very few times that I think there's been a change that is something like the community of that hero agreed that, well, we wanted this one thing and it happened and it actually made the hero better to play. I think the community that's the loudest on this topic is Mercy. I feel really bad for them. Because like one of the most important aspect of her experience, like forget balance and everything for a second, was people really enjoyed her movement and then they just babyfied it. And now anybody can, like, after like maybe 5-10 minutes of practicing like spam crouch and do this and that, they figure out the character.
Hold on, Abby. I'm sorry. Yeah. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Mercy mains after their show on Spylo, like Mercy Town Hall. I have no sympathy. They can get absolutely screwed. They have no idea what's wrong with their character. They don't know the problems. They pull out the movement and they're like, well, the movement needs to be better. And it's like, okay, but the movement needs to be nerfed in order to be better, right? You can't just have them flying around everywhere and be able to survive infinitely. Why is it like this in the first place? And for some reason, they can't play...
That's why I said ignoring balance for just a second.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what people enjoyed about a character.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right? And emotionally investing into the character. You're constantly being told the character's mid, it's horrible for ranked, and you shouldn't play it. And there's a lot of misogyny associated with it too.
Yeah, I think
which is sex for a lot of women gamers. Yeah. And like all that aside, as a hero experience, like it's been watered down, right? It's one of the reasons why I also a lot of my fun factor for Genji as well has been watered down is because for some strange reason, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos on him and particular like direction is they just believe he needs a lot to sustain. If you look at 3 out of 4 of his perks, they all encourage survivability.
Oh, he's 100% a 5v5 tank. Like, that's what he is. He's the off tank.
Like it's so boring. It's like, well, I fell in love with this character because I could do these crazy combos. I could go in the back line and I could do all these different things and I could work with Winston. And nowadays it's just kind of like, yes, I can still achieve the same type of success, quote unquote, with the character, but it's not the same way of using where I excel.
Would you say they removed the sharpness from your kit with Season 9? And your ability to be able to generally do stuff
aggressively? He actually fought, again, like going back to philosophy, because that's something and it at least gives me some leeway to throw balance at the window, is he literally fell into the category of we're allowed to give him breakpoints because he's mobile and this and that. And then for some strange reason, he's at 250 HP with less breakpoints. It's just like, wait. Tracer? The Echo?
It's a difficult one for me because I do think Greed is a bit whiny about Genji, because I will say that like being able to have anyone within your dash range have minus essentially 100 HP is very strong. You've got that dash, you've got that right click melee, and you can essentially bring everyone down to 150 effective HP or make them very threatened while they're in that range. But I think the average gameplay loop is so boring. All you're doing is staging and
waiting for just one moment.
Yeah, and you only engage when the tank goes, because you are putting out so much more pressure by just being there in your staging than you do by actually dashing on them. The moment you dash on them, all your staging's gone unless you actually get a kill. And you're unlikely to get a kill unless there's complementary pressure nowadays, because all the breakpoints have been changed to be so much higher and just so harder to actually get that insta kill. It's hard.
One of the more difficult things to bring this up, like for Genji as well, is people think you just want him turned into a server admin. I'm like, no. I don't want him to be a server admin. I don't think you realize pushing him down to 225 helps low elo Moiras and all these other beam characters farm him easier. I'm saying I want to lean into the skill ceiling of the character, allow people that are good at the combos and timing to thrive, rather than lean into, okay, well, he's good at like holding his tank's hand and waiting for daddy to help him cross the street. You know, like that's what I'm trying to do.
That's the whole thing with Season 9, right? Like when you increase all the health pools, you decrease the amount of, well, you also increase the amount of time it takes to regenerate that health pool at the same time. What you do is you engender a little bit of passivity, and you make it so that people all want to do everything at once when they can do it, right? They want to stage, they want to stay out of LOS, they want to keep their health bar full, health bar full. They see a mistake, they go on it. And that's ram form. I'm sorry. Like,
that's everything. What's so funny? You know what's so funny? I know we had the whole Rivals discussion, but that's literally how Rivals play. And we are so similar to it in 5 that we just don't realize it, but it's in different ways.
Yeah.
We have insane tank sustainability to allow us to draw out fights for so long. And we have a blanket DPS passive that the second you remove it from the game, we are no different to Marvel Rivals. And it's why, like, I have a video where I wanted to explore this, where I was like, I feel like sometimes the comparisons to Rivals is just so unfair, because like the arguments that people make for, well, Rival has this and this, I'm like, yeah, sure, they have it through supports, but we have it in Overwatch with tank. And remove the DPS passive and see what happens. Remove it right now and see what happens. Who do you think is going to thrive? What do you think is going to be the best comp? Remove it! I dare you, please! And it'll be just like Marvel Rivals, guys. Like, there's no reason to be delusional about it.
I think this state of Overwatch is definitely the most Marvel Rivals version of Overwatch we've ever had, and I think it only tends over time. The type of Overwatch I want is the active Overwatch, the one that's constantly doing things. It's good to aggressively do things into the enemy team. It's good to trade resources. You're not going to get punished 5 seconds down the line if you bother to trade a Zarya bubble with the enemy team. That's what I like.
At the very least, DPS and Marvel Rivals allows me to feel like I can contest tanks and supports. But in Overwatch, and I'm looking at the core mode. I'm not going to look at unfair. We're looking
Sorry,
at core
you cut out
mode
for a
here.
second there. You said you look at the core mode.
One moment. Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I was basically saying, like, at least in Marvel Rivals, DPS are allowed to be as strong as they are, because the trade-off is that, well, don't worry, there's a little bit of mitigation on tank, and then there's a lot of sustain on supports to help balance it out. But if a DPS catches you, you kind of deserve it. You know, like, if they find you, it's over. To some extent, like, it doesn't happen all the time, but surely, like, at least 7 times out of 10, a DPS should succeed in that scenario. But in Overwatch, it's like, well, if I'm playing DPS, like, I'm at the complete 5v5 mercy of my super tank, making sure, do I get to play this game or do I not? And forget, like, are we in the right tank matchup? Is the tank even playing the tank in the correct map? There's so many layers of, like,
I think,
is the tank doing
and I think
this
perks and bans make people feel like they have more agency in it, but realistically, it hasn't actually made that much better. Like, you still look at it, like, tank is still and always will be the, like, and 100, like, you look at the queue times, right? Blizzard can always just make it so that support never goes over 5 minutes. It's so easy to do. All you have to do is widen and widen the queues to the point where you are actually queuing in a reasonable amount of time. You just widen it over and over until you get to the, like, correct degree. So you can't tell how good the queue times really are, or the match quality times the queue times really is, because you never tell both of them at the same time. You can only qualitatively tell the match quality. So the question is, right, is there a way to actually make tanks viable to play in 5v5? I don't think there is. Nobody wants this. Nobody ever has wanted this. And then it just causes problems with everything else. It's so crazy.
So my thing on 5v5 was, initially when it came out, I was a fan of it because it stuck true to what they wanted, which was a faster game, less sustainability, and more lean into just go kill them, okay? And if you do that, you're good at this game. And I enjoyed it. I said, yeah, you know what? I prefer 5v5. But then it's just like, I don't know if this is like the most popular way to play the game or preferred way for supports or tanks, but it's like, they just inherently just lean back into sustainability because, oh well, at least it addresses concerns.
I can
But I'm
I
like,
can
well,
tell you what happened. Okay, I can tell you what happened. They removed the stability from teams by going to 5v5 by reducing the amount of peel and the amount of occupied place on the map. The general average low-level player doesn't like that because the general average low-ranked player wants to do what Marvel Rivals supports do, which is stand at the back of the map in a linear fight, healing the people in front of them. So when they went to 5v5, a massive amount of support players quit because they were being horribly oppressed by DPS being able to get free access into the backline. So what they did is they buffed the damaging capabilities of support in order to make up for that, and that started us rolling down the path. Essentially, like, quite a lot of the problems stem from the fact that nobody at an average level wants to play in a sharper game. They want to, like, people want to play Fortnite and go hit a fucking pallet in the back of the map for like 10 minutes and they get insta-killed. And they consider that a good experience because they hit a pallet at the back of the map for 10 minutes. And maybe they'll get a kill once or twice. That's the average experience people want. People don't want to load into a match and have a Genji in their backline on their head permanently. Like, it's a bad experience. Like, even if you like doing it as the Genji. It's so... basically.
yeah, but then the problem is like then they provide the tools progressively over time to start dealing with these things. I mean, look at how many buffs Moira has gotten throughout season 9 to now, and just tell me that's a fair experience for a Genji to fight. Like you're across that skill floor character to a skill ceiling character, Moira has gotten a bigger beam, more fade distance, the perks that lean into that. She's been given, like, I think now more healing. She's been given a longer the suck thing, like the across the map, her primary fire to do damage.
You can't increase the stability of these comps without increasing the support's ability to
she also has the DPS
individual
passive.
characters. Like, you
That's
can't
just
do
amazing.
that.
Like, she also gets that.
Like, you can't increase the stability without allowing them to be able to survive. Because the only other way to increase the stability is to increase the burst stability, like in Rivals, where we've got bubbles and stuff like that that infinitely peels from the enemies coming into their backline. That's the only other way to do it. You either increase their offensive potential, or you increase their sustain potential. And... everyone hates Suzu, right? We all fucking hate Suzu. We know what we're doing. We're not dumb. Suzu sucks. Lamp sucks. All of that sucks. But so the only other way for them to go was to increase the ability of them to get into the enemy team's backline. And we have that entire section where supports at the start of the game were not being picked, and that's why they increased their DPS potential. And then we had that entire section where supports were the only ones picked because they were just DPS plus. And now we're trying to get somewhere back into the middle, but especially I don't think any of this is sustainable.
Especially during the Iliari season, that was the lowest pick rates for, I think, DPS ever. Like, nobody wanted to play DPS. It was a miserable experience.
Yeah.
Like, you queued DPS to literally just spectate people do other, like, there's a Iliari off angling better than you, having more sustainability than you. On the other side, there's this character doing that. Then you have the tank to worry about, and you as a DPS, it just felt like you're a body that exists to complement either your tank or your support, depending on what they wanted to do.
Yeah, 100%. Suzu and Lamp is a joke compared to support utility from Rivals. Yep. And we want it, even Suzu and Lamp, we want to be less powerful, right? We're not really enjoying Suzu and Lamp being override abilities right now. At least Lamp only comes around every now and again. Iliari is a glorified DPS with a mindless life weaver. Yeah, I mean, I like Iliari. I like her as a character.
I think Pylon is the problem.
I actually think that Pylon could have come down in sustain for herself and for allies and been put to a flat number. They just didn't get the number right. Every single time Blizzard makes a reliable resource that can heal instantly, reactively to people's health. And by the way, Pylon is a smart heal, remember everyone. Always heals the lowest health person. Every single time the Overwatch team does it, they forget that they have to make it a lower number somehow. Every damn time. Like, they did it with Lucio Aura, Mercy Beam, they did it with Brig, they did it with so many different things. And, like, we have to reinvent the wheel every single time by balancing that one specific character until it's back into a reasonable range of reliable healing sources. But they never realize when they're making it, oh, we made something reliable, let's reduce the numbers, right? It just, yeah, it's just so frustrating to me that they have to reinvent the wheel every time they make a wheel.
Not just that, it's like you said, it's a wheel. We end up just running in the same circle over and over again, telling ourselves that, yeah, the game is fresh.
Yeah.
Like, to some extent, what the game is right now and how it feels is the exact way Season 9 felt when it came out. But that's because we've ludicrously buffed the DPS passive to allow the game to feel like this. So what's next? We repeat Season 10? we repeat season 11 over and over and over and over again. Orissa's meta right now. Funny enough, I think she was meta in season 10.
Yep, she
And then
just
it's like,
about powerful enough that she can sustain,
yeah.
and therefore she's meta. Yay!
And then what? Mauga's been constantly getting micro buffed, repeatedly. It's what's become like
Are
to
you
some
not
extent.
enjoying the Rissa Mauga Roadhog cycle? It will be Roadhog after Mauga.
Yeah. Oh, Roadhog's already a perma meta in 6v6. I don't know if you've been on the receiving end. Like Hog just doesn't die in 6v6.
Yeah.
He's the best. He's one of the
They
best.
never
tanks in
changed his
6v6.
heal. His heal's basically
Yeah.
unpunishable.
Yeah.
Like it's really bad.
Yeah.
And then
He
his
also gets the
ult is
damage
still an
reduction.
instant kill to anything because it's not interruptible. Just crazy.
Yeah.
Hog actually doesn't die. Yeah, he doesn't. But then again, they could just copy our mode and make our mode into 6v6 and it would be significantly better. I have to go. My friend is picking me up in 7 minutes.
So sorry for holding everyone hostage.
No, you're absolutely fine. I've been really enjoying the conversation.
I did. We should definitely do this more often. It's very fun.
Anything else you want to talk about or say before we go? Because I got a couple of minutes still.
Yeah. So just big thank you to everybody for allowing me to have this platform, and I sometimes end up wording things really aggressively, and I'm deeply apologetic for that. I have no ill intentions towards any of the games I criticize. Genuinely, I just want what's the best for them, and I know I'm not right about everything, and perhaps sometimes I really am ass pulling, but at least some areas I'm like, okay, I think it's a universal experience that this needs to go, no? And that's where I come from.
I think
That's
as long as people do that like aggressive assertion of their ideas and then they're willing to back it up afterwards, I've got no problem whatsoever. It's when people just like shove crap into the ether and then don't want to talk about it that always upsets me. As long as people are willing to back it up, yeah, I'm 100%. I've got no problem with people being strong about their views.
One of my gimmicks has always been, and if you go to any of my videos, almost every video I try to engage with my community, always. Just make sure that we can have an open dialogue, and I try my best to hear everybody's points and just read and see what people think.
That's disgusting. How dare you have an open mind? Yeah, I guess I've got to head regardless because my friend's going to turn up. So thank you very much for spending some time with me. I really appreciate you. It's been genuinely enjoyable. We'll call back up at some point. Maybe we'll get something to do when we call back up. Join Pugs.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Tuesday for Spilo, okay?
Tuesday? Okay, yeah, sure, I'd love to. What time? Like, we're in relatively similar time zones. It's almost 9 p.m. for me.
So for me, it's 4 p.m. BST to start Pugs, which is currently 6, so it's 2 hours ago.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
so we
for
normally
sure.
do Sunday and Wednesday, but this Wednesday is being moved to Tuesday for the Boss Man because Boss Man streams on his Tuesday. I don't know. He's more popular. He gets to choose his day.
No, I'd love to. It'd be really fun.
Okay, man. I'll see you very soon.
Right. Thank
Have
you,
a
Chad.
lovely evening.
Cheers. Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Boss Man Spilo demands Tuesday. He does indeed. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lucigu, Val, Maxi. I love all of you that's been active in chat. You've been amazing. I've been reading everything. Sorry, I haven't responded to you when it didn't flow in conversation, but I have read everything you put in there. I will probably ship this onto YouTube at some point in some way, shape, or form. Not sure what format this is going to be, depending on my editing schedule, because obviously, big conversations like this demand a lot of cutting and editing. So depending on how I'm doing, it might be a couple of months, gappa gappa. Anyway, I will be uploading the part 7 of my Rivals critique, part 7, tomorrow. It is a conversation between me and a lovely man who messaged me to talk about the gameplay of Marvel Rivals. It's an hour and like 15 long. I highly advise you to watch it, though it does have the form factor of a conversation rather than a video. I have gameplay cut into the background, and I will show you the intro now because intro funny. So I did a Peppa Pig edit because I couldn't help myself. One sec. Here's my Peppa Pig edit. Stop. You ready? You ready, guys? You ready for the Peppa Pig edit? Oh. You turn off.
What does this music make you think of? I am ready to put on a show!
It makes me feel a bit bored. It makes me feel tired.
Machine gone wrong.
Do you not like this music? No.
Your feet rooted to the ground. Feel the wind in your branches.
And the sun on your leaves. You're a tree.
Very good, children.
Good night, guys. Have a nice evening. Bye.